Hello, and
Hey.
welcome to another developer live stream. More 1.0 content because we have 128 slides, 24 videos. It's gonna be a busy day. We have a certain topics for today. Obviously, we still have some other live streams planned for 1.0, so this is definitely not yet all. You might even not believe that after all we were going to show today. Obviously, the female hunters will not be discussed today yet, but next week they will. So, let's go right into it because we have a lot of stuff planned, and I still want to go home before 10. So.
Or maybe we can make it.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay.
But let's first off start a little bit with what's happening on the Xbox realm.
Yeah, so we just did an Xbox update today, which is our first contact pack called Close Combat 1. Maybe you can tell a little bit about it?
So basically, as we launched into the game preview, we basically had like half the equipment that was up to 5.0 ready available. And the remaining of the equipment is being updated step by step, so people have a chance to kind of get used to it, kind of get to learn it also on the Xbox platform. So this is the first of the packs. There will be a couple more to come, obviously. And this is the Close Combat 1, which basically just enhances the game with a couple of variations that obviously some of the Steam Early Access users are very familiar with already. Yeah. But for the Xbox crowd, this is something obviously new and fresh. So they get like the time now to play with them. And then probably like in the next week or so, we will do like the next drop. And then continuously increasing the arsenal up to the level of eventually 1.0.
How many packs do we have?
I think it's like something less than 10 or so. I'm not 100% sure, but they come sometimes combined. Sometimes we might also actually release multiple packs in one go.
Okay.
So it's kind of mixed together a little bit, but we're going to start with Close Combat 1, which basically gives you the Vetterli bayonet, which is like actually a bayonet version of the Vetterli rifle that you guys know. A similar thing for the Romero 77 Talon, which is basically just an added like melee option to the weapon. And then we have the famous Cavalry Saber, like a fan favorite. As well as the Dusters. Now the Dusters are interesting because obviously they give you a bit more options against specific enemy types, right? The stamina shot also kind of enhances the whole thing because obviously by just jacking that one in, you have a chance of like doing a lot of melee attacks in succession without having to worry about stamina being depleted. That lasts like for a minute at this point. And then we have Gator Legs, which is a trait. And if you equip Gator Legs, it allows you to kind of move a little bit faster through water. So you can kind of have a bit less stamina consumption as you go through water. You fine?
Yeah. Your voice is sometimes not on screen. You can move closer. Closer. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I just don't want to cover the Gator Legs.
The Gator Leg. I'm covering the Gator Legs.
Gator Legs.
Oh well. But let's dive into.
So new content for Xbox, and there will be more in the next streams. But let's go and take a look at what's going to be in store for 1.0, in addition to the stuff you've already learned in the last stream.
So first, hunter changes.
Yes, so we're talking about a lot of quality of life improvements. We're talking about things like being able to, it's also like a community request for quite a long time, being able, for example, to bind different buttons for vaulting and jumping or for stopping to bleed and interacting, right? So by default, you will have the same buttons mapped as right now. However, you will be able to now, if you want, have them on separate buttons to bind them. By default, they're unbound, but it's up to you to use that.
Does this also count for, like, let's say, consumables?
Not for consumables, but mostly for actions which are overlapping. So wherever at the moment multiple things are on one button, we now give an option to kind of separate them a little bit.
Okay.
We also improved melee hit prediction. So this is something that you might have noticed, obviously, since we introduced the hit prediction system for shooting, is that melee always kind of felt a little bit lagging behind. It was because it wasn't really part of the system. So there's like a new system now that kind of extends this to melee, which gives you a much more quicker hit recognition. So like striking instantly, getting like the prediction telling you, yes, this was a hit or this very likely wasn't a hit, without waiting for server validation. And it just makes everything a bit faster, a bit more nicer. In addition to that, obviously controller.
Also something very long requested.
Yes. Controller support is coming, obviously, for PC, including like some of the improvements that we're doing for Xbox. And also, obviously, over time, we want to update the Xbox controls. So we've seen a lot of feedback. We've already played with the system a bit more, got a couple additional systems, etc., made it a bit easier. So eventually, as we get closer to 1.0 on Xbox also, we want to kind of improve those and roll it out to the community there.
Yeah.
And then we have something new. What could it be? A tactical ping system. What is that?
I already saw some people very excited in the chat, and I know I'm excited.
Let's show it first, then we explain it.
I mean, I think it speaks quite for itself. Oh my god, everyone's like, hype for the pigs! And here I thought Tactical Ping was the clever use of internet ping. Oh, no!
No, don't spoil it!
Go back. Nothing is here.
So basically what tactical ping system means is that you have a different way of communicating with your teammate. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Don't say anything.
I'm not saying anything at all. I'm confused though. All right, now we're back. So what it allows you to do is basically have non-verbal communication with your teammate. Mm-hmm. So for a change, you don't need to rely on the in-game voice. If you, for example, play it with a random, you can actually use the ping system. Now, the ping system has two different ways of using it. One is to set a waypoint beacon, which is just like if you tap the middle mouse button once. That basically puts a beacon at that point, which your teammate will be able to see like for, like, I think it's 10-15 seconds or so.
Yeah.
It's not very intrusive, but sometimes it can get in your way, obviously. So what we also have is an alert ping. So that's if you double tap the button. In this case, it will give you a more pronounced, a bit more warning-y additional beacon. However, that one will fade away very quickly. So what you can usually do is you can use the normal tactical ping to, for example, tell you like, okay, let's go over there or check this part out. Like something which is like more used when you're not under pressure.
I think it's good, especially because what I noticed is when you're playing with a random person that doesn't have a microphone, the communication is not the greatest because you can't really say, oh my god, there's someone there. Like I remember I was like playing with someone that's like, oh, I wish I could just like let them know because my mic wasn't working that I'm there or that I want to go there or there's someone there. It's like, please look there.
Yes.
So I definitely think it helped, especially because it's still a way of like communicating without having to actually talk. So people don't want to talk. So I think it's really good.
And then you can use like the alert, like if you double tap it in order to just really very specifically like points on it. Like if you want to tell you tell your partner like, okay, he's up at that window, right? Like you just use the alert one and it moves out of the way very quickly, so you can actually look at the window and can maybe see where the guy is sitting at. So they have different purposes each, and I think in complementation together with the chat and together with obviously your in-game voice, it gives you another means of communication, especially like for players who don't have like a completely 100% reliable teammate in like maybe a separate voice comm.
Yeah, if you guys hear some sound sometimes it's the AC. God bless, because it does work in his room and it was really, really hot. So ignore the Woody Woodpecker in the background.
Yeah, today actually is okay. Yesterday was like
yesterday
we wanted to die.
38 degrees. Indoors 35.
Yeah, it felt like fucking 40, 50.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Great.
What do we have else? We have new traits in store. So with 1.0, we're going to add a couple additional ones, and obviously we have nice images for those. Want to explain it first?
Thanks to Ina. So Ina has made these wonderful images once again. So we first have Silent Killer. Hunters make no or less sound on a melee attack.
So basically, if you want to take that trait, what it does is it gives you a chance to kind of avoid your effort sounds. So basically the huh, when you're like striking, those will be a bit more muted. Huh. And
again? No.
We have different variations. I can do all of them.
I mean, we only have X amount of slide left, but yeah.
So it gives you a chance that obviously if you equip this, like if stealth is your thing, you can now be a bit more effective in it. Obviously, if you don't hit the grunt directly, right? If you don't kill it, it might still scream, it might still yell. It might aggro and therefore like kind of undo what you were trying to do. But if you successfully kill an AI, you will be able to kind of get the same result as if you were doing a headshot, for example, with a silenced pistol on him. Like you kind of take him out silently and gives you just a better option. Obviously, you can still mess it up, so it's up to the player's skill to kind of make the best out of it.
Yeah. Okay, then next one, Poacher.
Poacher.
Place traps quietly.
Yep. So this one is kind of self-explanatory as well. It just means that whenever you have any of the alert or concertina traps on you, or if you find like a bear trap in the world, you have a chance to placing those a little bit more silently. Now this is interesting if you want to, for example, place them while you're maybe defending a boss arena, like you're banishing and want to defend a place, you know other players are around. You can, even with them maybe already being kind of close proximity, other side of the door, etc., still like set something up and kind of prepare and have a chance to do that more effectively. So it actually works as a trap.
Okay. LIGHTFOOT.
LIGHTFOOT.
I think this is something a lot of people like as well.
Yeah, so this one actually goes very nicely together with the kite skin and the silent killer, as being more of a like a ninja type of like moving around silently and focusing on the stealth side. So what this does is basically that if you vault, if you kind of jump, or if you also drop down, so that you normally would hear like the pain sound, like etc. type of stuff, that those would happen a bit more silently. So you can actually like maybe move around a little bit more easily and be able to avoid it. One thing we want to add to this, but we didn't put it in there because it's not 100% sure we will be able to deliver this for 1.0, is that it would also affect ladders. So we might be able to use it to kind of climb up a ladder without the guys maybe on the inside of the building knowing that you're actually trying to go on the roof. So it just opens up a bit more maneuverability options and just sneaking around and flanking.
Okay, I'd say people are already very exciting. Some people saying that it's too OP, but we will see. Vigilant. Traps are highlighted and easier to spot. And I do have to add, they are visible with dark side.
With dark side, yes. So Vigilant is basically a counter, obviously, to some of these mechanics. So if you want to be a bit more aware of what happens around you, like for example, before you rush into like a defended place, Vigilant helps you to, within a very short range, be able with dark side to spot that maybe someone placed, let's say, a trap on the other side of that window. It's kind of highlighted in dark side for you, so you can kind of see it, but only in a very, very short range. But therefore, you know for sure, okay, is it worth really bashing that door in, because maybe there's like 3 bear traps on the other side already, so you can kind of pick your battles. But you won't be able to just like look at a particular building from like 20-30 meters and see trap. Okay, I'll take this door. It's only for short range.
And how much is the range?
I think it's roughly 5 to 6 meters or so.
Okay.
So like you need to be really close to the window in order to get that information.
Yeah, okay. And then
iron repeater. So we got a lot of feedback on the headshot machine that is the Winfield rifle. So one thing we want to do for A, consistency, and B, balance, was to kind of bring the repeater rifles, so the Winfields, in line with some of the other weapons when it comes to trades. However, while trying this out, going 100% in the same direction felt a bit weird. It felt a bit too restrictive. So what's different with Iron Repeater compared to Iron Sharpshooter and Iron Devastator for shotguns and bolt action rifles is that with Iron Repeater we have a different animation while staying in iron sights. So you still are going to stay in ADS. So with a bolt action rifle, it kind of, once you fire, you pull you out, you do your cycling, you go back in. With Iron Repeater, it's a different animation as you are staying in sights compared to if you have Iron Repeater, which is exactly like it is at the moment, where you kind of keep on the sides. If that makes sense.
I mean, we can see.
But we have a video, I think.
Exactly. So I'm scared because that like out of place some things, and I don't want to like give away secrets.
Do we have audio for it? Yeah.
Yeah. Is that audio play?
I don't know.
I don't hear audio. Oh wait, why is me doing? Let me just redo that here. It's also 0. Why is it 0?
There's audio.
There's audio. I think it even comes in.
So as you can see with this, it is a bit different. So it's a bit harder to kind of stay on the target. So you can still obviously rapid fire with this, right? Also, you can see like the rate of fire in ADS a little bit slower than normal, while in hip, like shoulder aim, that's the same speed as before. It just means that sometimes, as you can see, like you need to realign a little bit between shots. Obviously, like a skilled player will adapt to this very easily and still be able to do like a lot of effective fire. But it has become a little bit more challenging than before, where basically the whole thing was just completely staying inside and you could just follow up with additional shots.
Yeah, I know a lot of people I know especially a few people that are very happy with this change. Because, oh my god, have I heard the word Winfield spammer from some people.
But just to be clear, if you have the trade, if you have Iron Repeater, it will be exactly like it is at the moment on live. But you need to invest in the trade, otherwise you get what you see on screen.
Yeah. Then I'm curious, when does this unlock, this trade?
I can look it up. I don't have it top of my head, but Iron Repeater is set to unlock.
Slide.
No, I have all the information here, everything. I think it was rather early, actually. It is happening at rank 18, I think. No, 19, rank 19.
19, okay. Makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, then next.
Dauntless.
Thrown explosive can be diffused.
Yeah. So what that means basically, if someone throws dynamite at you, and you have a good feeling that you didn't cook it for 3 seconds already, so it blows up in your face, you can approach it and you get like a little interaction prompt. So if you then press the use button, you will basically disable that explosive. You can put out the fuse.
Is there an animation for that?
There's no animation, but there's a nice sound. So basically, if you have the volts for it, you can run for it and try to see if you can disable it. It obviously only works for things that kind of have a fuse. So like obviously very easy on the chaos bomb and the sticky bomb with the 8-second fuses, but for normal dynamites and frag bomb stuff, it's like 4 seconds. So if you saw him just throw it at you because you didn't have the time to spam it, there's an easy way for you. Otherwise, if it just comes flying through the window, it's up to you if you want to risk it, but there's a chance for you to do that, so maybe you can get out of a situation where otherwise you would be totally trapped.
I'm actually curious, how often have you guys tried this?
We have died a lot to explosives.
So how risky is it for people to go with this and actually try this? Because like it's a very high risk.
If you go up against a good player that knows how to prime their grenades properly, right, field, etc., then it's going to be very, very hard. But where it's most effective is if you're in a fight with a guy. So you kind of know that he's there, right? It's not an ambush situation. And you see him at one point pull a dynamite and throw it roughly in the direction, and maybe you can't really get away from it, then obviously it's an easy bet.
So it would be a direct, like, turn it off.
Yes. There's some additional readability feedback that we're going to talk about in a minute or two that will kind of support this from the explosive side.
Good question. If you're stuck with a sticky bomb, will your interaction stop bleeding or stop the fuse?
I think at the moment everything's stopping. The bleeding has a high priority, but this one is meant to be sitting even more on top because it's not a hold action, right? You don't need to like hold it for a second because that would be kind of weird.
Hold it while waiting.
If you see the prompt, you press the button, it's instantly out. Done.
Okay. I'm very curious who's going to try this one. So we have some changes to create the bolt seer.
Basically that's so far for the new ones that will come in 1.0. So you can see what we try to do is we kind of plugged some holes, right? Like made sure that like certain gaps that like for some stealth oriented stuff, etc., was a bit more featured. There's a bit more options available for that. But we also have a couple of changes. So bolt seer, for example, as you know, like it's even with bolt seer, it's still a pain to kind of find the throwing knives or the crossbow bolts. And what we do now is, if you go into dark side, you will be able to much clearer see this. This is going to be a similar like highlighting as we've talked about for the vigilant trait, which allows you to see the traps. However, this one is then basically with a longer range. So it's not just 5-6 meters. It's like further out. I think it's like 20 meters at the moment. So you can kind of see a little bit what's going on. There's actually a pretty nice effect that if you manage to throw like a knife on a player or like a bolt at a player, and they run around the corner, technically you still see the highlight, right? You can use that to track them. Obviously, this would not be forever because I mean they still bleed, and only the moment they stop the bleeding, it drops on the ground. But there is a bit of a secondary effect in there that allows you kind of like track a little bit and understand where they're moving. So a bit of depth.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, it is something that some people indeed have mentioned quite a while ago. It would be nice. So
resilience.
Yeah. So resilience now gives 100 health back rather than the 50 that originally gave back.
Yes. So we felt that, and I think there was a lot of feedback going in a similar direction from the community, that just a 50 usually ended you up dead anyways, right? Like, so you get tagged once with another shot, and unless it was really far away with a weak weapon or hit you in the arm or whatever, actually you probably got downed again. So resilience now is a bit more powerful. It fills up to 100 hit points, and therefore you might be able to survive one more attack, etc. Just gives a higher chance for you to get away, so that like corpse camping isn't a guaranteed thing. Obviously, that also means the price has gone up a little bit for this one. This is something in general where we have balanced the traits quite a bit. So what you will see is once we get closer to the 1.0 release, and you have a chance to try this on test server, that different traits have now been changed in terms of how much they cost to unlock, in terms of like the upgrade points to equip them.
Yeah, we changed a lot of them.
I think it's like don't
20 or so.
Yeah, we don't want to go through the entire list, but maybe some of the more prominent ones. So Big changes here. So for example, the sniper ones. So everything which is about like steady hand, steady aim, the different scope smiths we have, they all went down. And also they scaled a little bit. Before was I think like 4 points, 4 to 5 points for all of them, which was quite a bit an upfront cost. Do not turn your guy into a sniper. So now, for example, steady hand unlocks it can be equipped with just 2 rather than 5 points. Steady aim with 4 rather than 6, so that you can all see the difference, which means like the one for the pistol is a lot cheaper, so it's much more of a consideration how to use it as a backup trade when you want to spend those points, so you can have like a Nagant's Deadeye with advantage. In the same way, the scope smiths, for example, Deadeye scope smith went down from 4 to 1, Marksman scope smith went down from 4 to 2, and the sniper scope smith went down from 4 to 3. So they kind of scale again with the efficiency and how powerful the weapon is. So like we've kind of applied that feedback from the community, but also like a little bit more common sense, like how powerful certain traits actually are in the game, how often they're being used, and kind of did a balancing pass on that one. Again, on a test server at a later date, you will be able to try them all out, and then obviously the patch notes will have the full detail.
Yes. Okay. Next one.
Oh, there's even new weapon stuff.
Yeah, so we have some new weapons.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys have seen the previous stream about legendary content. So obviously, like the weapon skins, the legendary skins, that's where the primary focus of us for 1.0 is, like to kind of open up this whole new feature to people. But we still have a couple additional variations of weapons we want to roll out. So specifically ones we've added recently. So the BORNHEIM number 3 is getting a extended version. Now, this looks interesting at first. It's like, is this a magazine you can just like pull out, etc.? Is this a modern weapon? No, it's not, because there's actually a trade-off. This is actually rather interesting for this one. As you know, like the normal BORNHEIM has like a 5-round capacity. So you can open up the little flap on the side, and then you can insert this clip with 5 rounds. So it's a bit of an awkward reloading procedure based on this being a prototype weapon at the time that obviously never really became very famous and popular. However, with the extended version now is that you cannot reload this by inserting a clip. This is bolted shut. Instead, it has been like kind of like tinkered around with and kind of expanded. So now the weapon holds 8 rounds, but the only way to reload these 8 rounds is if you top them up. So you will not be able to just like fast reload like 8 rounds or even 5 rounds in one go. The only way you can get ammunition into this gun is by just putting one round after another in, which means a little bit slower reload compared to the regular BORNHEIM, but more capacity. So it's a trade-off.
Okay, and we have a video of that.
Yes. So in this case, you can see enough extra capacity, but he's doing it one by one. So in combat, it might take a bit to actually top up. So you're not as flexible as just putting the private clip into the normal one, but you have more shots. Since he like armor is coming from me, so maybe I can only put like 2 or 3 rounds in, abort the whole thing, and then finish him off. Alright, that's the first one. Well, we have more.
Yeah.
So the LEBEL also gets a bit of attention. So we've added a TALON version of the LEBEL. We don't have a video about that one because it's rather straightforward. It works similar to like the Romero TALON and the Winfield TALON in terms of giving you a heavy melee attack, slash attack that you can use to kind of like eviscerate and kill things.
Yeah, and then we have the LEBEL Marksman.
Yeah, so that was a bit hinted at in some of the previous streams already. So here's the confirmation. It's a marksman variation of the LEBEL rifle. So again, obviously that brings finally a second weapon using the marksman scope, because so far it's just been the Winfield, and kind of differentiates also a little bit from the Mosin sniper rifle in terms of having not as far range, but it's more of a mid-range sniper. But I mean, the LEBEL being a long bullet, long ammo rifle, I mean, packs quite a punch. So you can kill things at mid-range very effectively with this. So yeah, that's like 3 additional weapon variations.
Yeah, do we have a video?
We do have a video of this one, yes.
And might already. Oh no, this one.
It's like a bit of a new thing here. This is a bit of an unusual look. I mean, the scope is kind of attached a little bit to the side of the weapon, so you can obviously insert ammunition. It's a bit different than the Mosin Nagant loading mechanism. So at first,
No! How do I go back? I still haven't figured that out.
I guess there will be changes to the hive bomb.
No, I don't think they are at all. So,
well, we have more before.
Yeah, so we have web changes. Something we've discussed or talked about last time is the dynamic dirt system that's coming to the game. And it's also actually to do with scopes a little bit, because the more you use the weapons on the ground, the dirtier they get, but also scopes break.
Yes, so the scopes basically are a separate mechanic to this, but they still kind of link together. So let's first talk about the dynamic dirt system. So we talked about this during the legendary weapon stream we had last week. That weapons are being bought in a not so dirty way. You still buy them like kind of secondhand, so they'd never be fully pristine unless you buy a legendary, which obviously has been polished nicely for you as you purchased it. And then depending on your use, so linked to the fact that you get downs, that's the important part. So just moving through 5-6 missions with the same gun without getting killed once will not have an effect on the dirtiness of the weapon. What has an effect on the dirtiness is getting downed, which means someone either picks up your weapon, that's contraband, which is always a bit dirty that way, so, or you getting revived by a partner afterwards, means your weapon is now a bit dirtier. This has zero effect on gameplay, so this is just a cosmetic thing. Yeah. So actually some people might argue a dirty weapon is much nicer for camouflage. I want my weapons to dirty, so please down me and revive me, because I want that. But it also gives you a chance, obviously, inside the menu to kind of clean the weapon again, and then just restore the pristine looks. You can even get a weapon you buy in the store in a rather clean shape, but not fully clean, like this here, for example, like more like this. You can completely clean it up if that's your thing. It's additional small little feature, and just mostly for convenience. There is no real gameplay benefits or disadvantages for having them. So yeah, and then the second part, since you just mentioned that, I think we can go to the next one.
No,
actually, we just do it a little bit later, then we talk about the contraband there.
Later
then we also have some changes to antidote and stamina. So first off, we're introducing weak versions of each of those. So that means you have just like with the vitality shots, like both a weak and a regular one. And we've also kind of changed the time of how long they're effective. So we did a recent change with the antidote, where we said the antidote shot is like a full match, like 1 hour time, and that's still the case for the now golden colored regular antidote shot. And we do have a weak version which is lasting for 6 minutes. So that's basically just enough for a boss fight or some nice encounter. Obviously, just like with the vitality shots, it's much cheaper as a weak version, while the big one obviously has a more lasting effect for the entire match. Now, the same is true for the stamina, where the full-blown stamina shot now has been increased to 10 minutes. So this is a drastic change. Before it was just 1 minute. Now the weak shot has the 1 minute on it, and I think the price tag on the weak one is roughly the same as the previous one was. So there is a better version now, which is the regular, which gives you 10 minutes of stamina, and I saw that.
Sorry.
And that means it's gonna be a very powerful choice for a melee kit, because I mean in 10 minutes you can do quite a lot of damage with melee and sprinting, etc. So it's a very powerful, but obviously also very expensive
Cost.
Yes.
Okay, then we have the poison hive bomb changes.
Yes, so we talked about those a little bit in one of the previous. No. I never expected a hive bomb to appear. So on poison, what we changed is primarily how effective it is as a blocker. So at the moment, I think, and if you use like a poison bomb on hive, on life, sorry, it's I think like around minute or 2 minutes, then the cloud dissipates. Like now it's I think 5 to 6 minutes, so it's a much longer time. It works much more efficiently as a blocker, for example, to kind of gate a specific area, or to place it, for example, inside a boss arena, etc., for a boss to continuously be affected by running through, etc., unless it's the spider, which doesn't mean that much then. Also, when you walk into the poison cloud, it's going to be a lot more powerful, so it does more damage. And for this to be really meaningful, we actually did one change to poison in general, which is on the last update we kind of reduced it from 20 seconds to 10 seconds, and we brought it back. We brought it back up to 15 seconds now. So poison is just a little bit longer, so we're in a meeting halfway in between. What we did not change, however, is the trait, if I ever can pronounce it, Mithranidis or Mithranidist. Mithranidist trait. Which still remains at the 5 seconds. So that still keeps the change from the last time. So if you don't have the trait, you can be poisoned for 15 seconds. If you have the trait, you'll be poisoned for 5 seconds. So the trait still becomes mithridane. Yeah.
Tease for the woodpecker trait.
Then we have the hive bomb. Now the hive bomb had multiple issues, but one very big one, which was that it wasn't really friendly to the thrower. And while that comes with the nature of it, that the whole thing is kind of like wasps you can release and they can fire back. The problem was it was too likely to happen. So you would throw it to a window, you would jump in, the guy might have already moved out of the way before the swarm even started to attack, and all of a sudden the swarm sees you and comes back at you. So like there was a high chance for misfires basically where it came back. What we've done is we've kind of made sure that the moment you throw it, it instantly searches for a target that is not you. So you have a bit of a grace period still, so that it chooses other targets over you. But these other targets don't really have a chance to move away from it, before the swarm actually becomes active and searches. So you see a much faster response now of the hive bomb chasing its initial target. And like the second problem the hive bomb had is that even if it managed to do a kill finally, well, usually the lifetime of the swarm was still not up, which means the swarm would now come find a new target, and for the most part, it was unfortunately you. So again, kind of backfired. Same thing. Like so, it's on a perfection change. So you and your teammate are both equally protected. Now we've changed it as well. So hive swarms in general have received an update, and that is primarily that if they have successfully killed, the swarm dissipates completely. So if you manage to kill the one first guy, swarm is gone. So you don't need to worry about it's lingering around and possibly like coming back, actually like haunting you. And the second change is that was one of the problems we had initially when we set up the hive bomb. Yeah. There is a counter to it.
Yeah, and then we have a video for that.
Yeah. So hive swarm comes at you. You can see the cheeky hunter the hut over there through it. You can actually melee the swarms. You can actually do attacks against it in order to make it dissipate faster, disappear. This is more effective if you can just leave this one running. No, just leave it running. So you can do this more effectively if you swat them with for example, like a buttstock or like a slash attack, something which has like an area, like kind of swatted. But it's not so effective with, for example, like a step attack, like a bayonet. So in this case, actually, the bayonet is a bit of a disadvantage of getting the cloud away. It takes a little bit longer, but actually a regular buttstock is pretty nice, just like kind of swatting them away and getting some freedom. Obviously they might still poison you, they might still be a bit annoying, but at least you can do something against them. For example, if you're trapped inside the same room with a thing and you really don't want to run out, because then you get killed, sniped, whatsoever. So that means in general though that not only the hive bomb but also other things using the hive swarm have changed, and we're going to talk about those a little bit further down the line.
Exactly. So we have another list of
weapon changes. So with 1.0, I mentioned it in one of the previous streams, we want to kind of bring some of the weapons up more on a more competitive level than they are currently. So this is, for example, the Nagant Precision and the Nagant Deadeye, which are on their own not really bad, but also not really good. So there's always a better option. I mean, yes, you can have a Winfield on the medium slot technically with a Precision, but so what we've been doing is we've looked specifically at the accuracy they provide. So with a shoulder stock, kind of like giving you a bit of a chance to normalize. So they have a more tighter spread now, and we have also changed the fire rate. Now the fire rate can be explained by, if you have them in your shoulder stock, like it's a bit easier maybe to work the hammer, right? I mean, is it really? I don't know. That's our take on it in order to justify why both the Nagant Precision and Deadeye are just a bit more faster. Not really as fast as the Officer Nagant would be, but somewhere in between. So there is another advantage of using them. You can kind of spam a little bit more, maybe get a few more shots down range. Also, like the animation is a bit more stabilized, so actually have a higher chance to kind of keep the target in sight. And that obviously turns the Deadeye into a very interesting kind of like faster shooting, like short range sniper pistol. So then we have
extra ammo changes to differentiate similar weapons more.
What could that mean? So let's use one example. We just talked about the Nagants. Let's stick with the Nagants. So the regular Nagant has, I think, 21 rounds extra ammunition. what we've done is we've sent a similar weapon like the Nagant Officer, which is, I would argue, superior in many ways. At least has more advantages than drawbacks, so it definitely feels like a step up. Is now differentiated by having a little bit less extra ammo, so that the weaker version, the base version in this case of the Nagant, sticks with 21, or maybe I think it might even have gone up a little bit, while the Officer version is a little bit lower. So there's a bit of difference. A similar thing is happening for the Winfield, for example, where the Winfield C just has a bit more extra ammunition now than the full-blown Winfield. So it's an additional variable for balancing. Or we can say that like some of the weapons that feel like they're like the better version of something similar actually have a bit of a disadvantage as well now.
Yeah. Piercing damage no longer causes bleeding.
So this is actually a pretty big change, even though it doesn't read as much as that. Now, what we have at the moment in life is that both the slash attacks, so like things from a machete, for example, or a talon, cause bleeding, but also the piercing attacks. Now, for example, that means a bayonet stab, or that means like the heavy attack from a knife. Now, with piercing no longer causing bleeding, that means you have to kind of choose which attack you do. On the knife, for example, the regular attack is a slash attack. It's kind of rather weak, but it does the bleeding damage. And the heavy attack is the stab. It's much more of a puncture, right? More like a bullet, which also don't cause bleeding in our mechanics. While like the actual slash, I mean, it cuts like a really, really big open wound, and therefore has this additional bleeding mechanic.
Especially with the bomb lance.
Especially with the bomb lance, yes. So it's just to have these two melee attacks be a bit more different and feel a bit more different, have their own take. And it also makes it easier. For example, you might have noticed that in the shop when we had like the different like ammunition type tags, etc. There is sometimes a bit misleading information, because obviously the Nitro Express rifle, for example, has piercing as an attribute, but obviously it doesn't do bleeding, right? Like, so rather than adding that to the Nitro, we've kind of decided that there should be more of a difference between piercing and slash melee. So rending and piercing are different.
Exactly. Apertures, I assume, and affected by traits.
Yes. So unfortunately for 1.0, we can't go the full way of what we wanted to do, which is giving you a flip side. That has to wait a little bit longer. But we've kind of looked at the zoom a little bit and in general how it feels, and made it actually a bit closer to some of the other scopes. So it's a bit, has just a bit more, a bit more useful. And also it is now affected by traits, which means if I have the steady aim trait, like it kind of like stabilizes over those, I think like roughly 10 seconds or so. So you can use it actually to effectively line up a shot. It's still a minor change, but it still adds a little bit boost to the aperture side in general, and especially the additional zoom actually makes us feel like a pretty low-cost, simple sniper scope you can have.
No, get the nitro bleeding and burning.
And poison.
And then we have third-person shadows for weapons.
Yes.
So that's something we have a video for as well?
Yes, I mean, as you know at the moment, if you look at your own shadow, sometimes you see a floating pistol, weapon, etc. So that was better than not having anything, but now we have the real deal. So a minor thing, but actually something we're pretty proud of that we finally have that. So you see your shadow reflecting properly what happens in your hands.
Look, guys, I have it in my hands.
So yeah, shadows. All right. We have more.
I mean, we are only at slide. I wish if we can tell.
How many videos did we have so far? 2, 3?
We've had 5 videos.
5
out of
videos.
24.
Yeah, so it's still a bit to go.
A little bit to go. Okay, so aim helper improvement.
Yes, so this is more of a visual change. So we don't. I think, do we have actually video for it?
We have 2 videos. So
yeah, just let it run.
We can watch those back to back. So we have the aim helper improvements and the effect on burning fuses.
Yes. So aim helper, it's just a visual change. We're still polishing this a little bit more, so we want to make sure that it works a little bit better still against a bright background, but overall just like graphics adjustments, etc. So it doesn't look like the debug line we're gonna draw. We actually have a bit more artwork there. And then there's this other thing here. It's like you actually see the fuse burning in your hands, so that if you have, for example, a firebomb or dynamite, I can show this one again. As you can see on your own arms there, the moment you ignite it, actually there is a proper effect on it now, which means you will much easier see, and that's what I meant earlier about improvements also on the explosive side. You see much easier when someone is prepping some explosive to throw against you, like here, especially obviously at nighttime, and therefore have a chance to react better.
Yeah. Let's see if I can prevent the next video to show.
No spoilers today?
I mean, we'll just say that this.
It's fine. All right. Now, then we have a big one. Wall penetration rework.
Oh, well, I should say penetration.
Wall penetration rework.
But, you know, penetration.
No, this is our own take. This is
the new thing.
It's the Crytek proprietary system, penetration.
I don't know how I read that. Penetration. Just ignore it.
We can just like kind of move on to the first video.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm good at writing sometimes.
So I'm gonna pause this a little bit in between. So basically what we've been doing is we've looked at wall penetration of projectiles and made sure that everything feels a bit more consistent. So I mean, some of the bullets from our era are not the most efficient bullets, right? Like, so even something like a Mosin Nagant was using very different bullets at that time than they were in later, for example, World Wars, etc. Right? Like where ammunition has improved with like smokeless cartridges and spits around projectiles. There's so much about this bullshit you can talk about for ages. So it's all fine. However, what does this mean for gameplay and for balance? And that's the important part. What we've been doing is we wanted to make sure that the weapons feel fairer, so that actually cover becomes a bit more relevant for you. So we've kind of looked at the different projectile types, so like compact, medium, long, short, etc.
It's very interesting to watch your videos, I'm not gonna lie.
And what you will see in a second is basically how the different bullet types go through. So we're going to start with the compact bullets, which are actually rather weak. I mean, it's a pistol cartridge, even though it fired from a rifle here in this case. Very small, very like limited power, very limited reach. And what you will see here is how these shots actually behave over distance. Now, I'll explain in a second what all of these different colors, etc. mean.
What are you looking at?
It's basically Crytek cheat mode confirmed. So what you can see here is basically that every time the bullet has kind of hit an obstacle, it checks whether it can penetrate that obstacle or not. So in the case of those two yellow ones is that you kind of hit the wood and the projectile at this distance particular is allowed to go through it. So it's powerful enough, like I mean projectiles lose power over distance in order to penetrate this wood. Obviously the damage behind the wall is actually weaker, so that means it kind of degrades the more and more you try to penetrate. Also like a compact pistol can maybe penetrate like 2 or so sheets of wood, but that's about it. But what you can see here as well is that if you go a little bit further, that actually there is this pink/purple hit, and that actually is also hitting just a different normal fence. However, it's like 6-7 meters further away, and it seems like this already stopped the bullet. So the takeaway here is that if you shoot with a compact bullet at a very long distance, even a regular fence might not provide protection. So as you can see, maybe if you take a look to the right side of the screen where you see the forest in the background behind the hut, there's like another fence in the far distance. That one, if you would shoot from this current position, very likely would also give you one of those purple ones, which means no penetration happens. So that means anything with compact bullets isn't really that effective of reaching through cover and hitting an enemy behind at a certain distance. What you can also see is that on the left side there's a metal sheet obviously lined up against the wall here, and that instantly stops it because compact bullets don't go through any of the metal sheets. This is the same as is currently on live, but is a nice demonstration here. So again, one shot made it to the second wall but didn't penetrate further, and then this one here went very far, went a little bit off, and obviously it didn't penetrate the tree here as well. So yeah, that's how it's for compact bullets. Now let's have a look at the long bullets. Obviously rifle cartridges, more powerful, much more punch, and what we've been doing to those, because they have been already pretty powerful, we actually tamed them a little bit. What we'll see here is actually how and to what extent we've reduced their capacity to actually penetrate thick objects. Now the first thing is that wood is absolutely zero obstacle for them. So you can see without any problem are you penetrating into multiple layers of wood. You can usually shoot through entire huts. I mean, with the big church here, Whitechapel in the background, very likely you would not be able to penetrate the whole thing, but it would definitely reach the inside of the building at a weaker capacity. Now this is also something we changed, which is different. On live, the long bullets actually, for the first penetration, don't lose any damage. This is different now with 1.0, where they're being slightly reduced. So the chance to, for example, kill someone with a body shot instantly is a bit more reduced. Obviously, it still hurts quite a bit, and you can still down them depending on where you hit them, but it's less of an issue.
Yeah.
And as you can see here in the front, with a brick wall, you won't be able to shoot through brick walls with long bullets, with the base long bullets that is. So in this case, I mean, we're talking about like 2 or 3 layers of brick here. So quite of a actually thick wall, but that bullet is not powerful enough to go through this type of obstacle. So as you can see here, again, it's like stone walls specifically. So if you move around a lot around crematorium, for example, provide much more excellent cover in order to stop these long bullets. But also, as you know, on the roadmap, we have ammunition types for post 1.0 release. So obviously, this is also setting a bit the foundation so that we have a room to kind of expand on this moving forward with different ammunition types that then maybe restore some of these attributes moving forward. So yeah, then let's look at shotguns. So as you can see here, we've had the discussion before. Purple one, no penetration, which means at this distance, the sawn-off Spencer would not have a chance to get any target, or Spectre, the original is called Spencer, to actually hit like a guy that you know is on the other side. For that, you would need to get a little bit closer, and then as you can see, now it starts penetrating. Here again on the side, second shot, and you will see as we use our evil cheat mode again.
Evil cheat mode.
As you can see here, is that depending on the range, actually, like you have a chance to go through. But on the one on the furthest on the bottom, the one shot, you can see like actually half of the pellets actually got stopped by those hay balls, like haystacks there, and neither of any of those that went through the wall was able to penetrate into the actual barn, right? So if you want to shoot with a shotgun, you have to do it at close range. It's actually rather effective, so we've upped it a little bit with how effective it can shoot through wood. Like you might have remembered some situation where we're trying to, for example, shoot like another player with a shotgun at close range in some of the compounds, and just because those proxies, the walls were a bit too thick there, even though they were clearly made out of simple wood, the shotgun would fail to penetrate. That was a bit inconsistent, it was hard to guess like when does it work. That is a bit more reliable now, so usually if it's a wooden wall, you can shoot this through this one wooden wall, but you won't be able to reach a lot further, and you have to be really, really close.
Someone actually, can you penetrate through multiple hunters?
No, the only weapon that can do that at the moment is the Nitro Express.
The Nitro can do that. Well, that's a good question. So yeah.
So then we have, I think, one more. Yeah. So as you can see here, just for the last bit, like didn't go in the inside.
Will we get the flying perk?
That's def only, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Def X.
All right, then the last one is, that's actually also a pretty big change, trees in general. So what we had as a limitation in the past was that we couldn't really differentiate between different materials. So the trees were made out of wood, but also those fences or the walls were made out of wood. So if you wanted to allow it to shoot through a specific type of wall, systemically, you would also be able to shoot through a tree that was in a similar thickness. Now that created issues where sometimes weak bullets, or even like some of the long bullets, were just way too powerful, hitting enemies behind walls and also behind trees. Now, bullets can go through trees. That's possible if you have a high-powered, large caliber thing. Like a small tree is usually not an obstacle for a tree, but a thick, massive tree usually is. Now, what we've tried to do here is, like, let me just show you on a compact bullet, is like that the proxies have been optimized, and in general, you won't be able to shoot like with small little bullets through a tree in any case, and the big ones only through very, very small ones. So like the one we saw on the far right there, the very thin one, that's maybe where a long bullet would go through, but any of those trees around here, it would not. So trees have become reliable cover again. Obviously, if you have a Nitro Express, or if you kind of like see the arm, the angle, etc., right? I mean, they can still hit you. It's all based on thickness. So at the very, very side of a tree, where it's like the thinnest for you to penetrate, you still have a small chance to do that. But systemically, for the most part, trees are now pretty good.
Oh, okay. I was thinking the stream went down for a second and everyone was pressing F, but it's because he died. I was like, what is going on? No. Okay. Thanks for the heart attack.
All right, so that's it for wall penetration changes. Again, once we get closer to the 1.0 and the test server time, you'll be able to try it on a test server, give us feedback, etc.
Okay. So the next one, more weapon changes.
Oh.
I mean, we have a list of them.
Almost looks like we're trying to release like a full game or something.
We actually did an update for Xbox today, Devil Tactics. Make sure you check it out. We showed it at the beginning of the stream, but if you check your Xbox, it's there.
Yes. Also, speaking of Xbox, that's a change that we've done today as well. If you want to try out Xbox, so you haven't purchased it yet, we have increased the time you can demo the game for free. So you have 2 hours now to kind of try the game, give it a try, get a feel for it, before the free trial runs out on Xbox.
Yeah. I've forgotten about it as well.
Me too.
Okay. Weapons of burned players cannot be looted.
All right, so this is actually, again, based on community feedback. So we've done some changes in the last update where we said, like, you can't loot a burnt player. And that was the first step. We said we're going to evaluate if you want to extend this to the arsenal as well. And the big feedback we got so far is, yes, please expand it to the arsenal. So we did. And that means if you burn a guy, and even if the weapons have rolled down a slope or whatever, there's a link to the guy. So if you burn him and he has this shiny, like, legendary weapon, for example, you definitely want to pick up, or just like a good weapon that you would like to use because you run out of ammunition or because situation requires a change, you can't do that because you burned him. So,
general improvements to the animation and line.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a container. So there are, like, I think like a dozen or so very small changes that are kind of linked to this, and this is mostly about optimizations with some of the animations that we've seen. For example, a logic change example would be the revolvers. So as you know that if you have a revolver with 6 shots and you fire 1, 2, 3 shots, in order for you to reload, you would need to spin the drum again to the position where the first empty round is, so that as you go through the loop, you kind of like reload them in sequence. We do this at the moment by magically spinning the drum, and it always lands exactly at that round chamber that you want to change out. Now, that is perfectly good and fine, but in addition to that is that if you abort a reload, so if you don't finish the reload, so you don't have full 6 rounds where it doesn't matter when you start shooting, you would need to do the same thing, and this is what we've added. So basically, if you now stop reloading halfway through, it has to, on the out, do a quick spin as well in order to get the first ready round again ready to fire. So it just completes the sequence. That means that the revolvers just have a bit more time if you abort, but it's not that much. It just means they follow a similar logic as, for example, of the other weapons, where depending if you do a partial reload or if you empty the weapon completely, sometimes the timings just slightly change.
Exactly. So the weapon projectile speed's now tuned to more realistic values for the era, because we're in the 80s, the 1800s.
1995.
Yeah.
1895.
The late 1800s. Words are my brain.
So what this means is basically that, again, in mind having that we want to increase additional additional ammunition types moving forward, we made sure that some of the weapons that currently have are no longer bound by the projectile. So this is the biggest change at the moment. What we have right now is a long bullet has a certain speed. If you look on the tooltip of the long bullet, it tells you it's, I think, like 800 meters a second or something like that. And the medium and the compact, etc., they all have the same speed. What we've been doing, and we're going to show that a little bit when we talk about the UI improvements in the future stream, about like how these stats are now more represented. And one thing that they can already give away for that is that you will see for each of the weapons the exact meters per second muzzle velocity. So like the bullets basically travel speed. So that gives us a chance now to actually go away from the flat out, okay, long bullet is always like this, compact bullet is always like that, to have actually more differences between the weapons based on the realistic attributes of what they would normally do. So as such, some of the projectiles have been increased, some of them have been reduced in speed. Again, if you're really into it, you can just search Wikipedia or any gun encyclopedia of your trust and look up numbers, etc. And very likely, if you look at bullets from the era, you get close to the numbers that will be in the game.
Okay.
For the most part,
so
but all of that will be then revealed properly in the changelog and on the test server for you to try out. That means so some of the weapons that you might be very familiar with actually might be a bit slower, which means actually the effective range is reduced. Some of the other weapons actually might receive a little bit of a boost, which means actually a bit easier to hit over distance because the bullet takes less time to travel there. So I think Blue Pixel is asking about the sound. Maybe you can just, this is just the AC system.
It's nothing I can do about it. It's literally the AC that does that every once. I must say, since it's really hot now, it's been doing it more often.
Yeah.
Because it would happen every once in a while. But it's literally, I mean, I'm not allowed even to touch my AC, and I'm not going to try because it works at least.
Today the heat is bearable, so it's all good.
But
I'll leave it at that.
I'm sorry for I don't know. I can't fix that. It's not my, I can't fix ACs. It's not within my job description.
We have like a guy sitting in the background with like a little drum, and he's basically doing that whenever new features being announced.
Yeah. I painted this green wall. I just can't fix ACs. I can't do everything.
Did you realize they don't see the green wall, right?
I know, but they know it's a green screen. I painted the wall green. You can't see it, but it's there.
All right. then let's go to the next point. I totally lost my train of thought.
Slightly reduced idle burst rate on weapons when aiming down sights.
Yes. So this is basically, again, optimization to kind of make the game feel a little bit nicer. So some of the weapons feel like they have a bit too much weapon bobbing going on as you stand still. You kind of use the sights, like the line sights or scope, etc. So overall, we're kind of reducing a little bit more to just make the weapons a little bit easier to use for especially like newer players.
Yeah.
But overall, the challenge is still going to be the same, and we very much still probably have amongst the largest ways of games out there when it comes to that. So it's part of our balancing formula, and it's still very important for a skilled player to be able to manage this way, but nudge it down a little bit, make it a little bit more bearable on some of the weapons, specifically like rifles, etc., where actually it feels a bit too harsh.
Yeah. And then we come to the cracked scopes and contraband only, which means clean scopes. We got a video for that.
Yeah. So.
Clean scopes.
Okay, so by default, all of the scopes no longer have cracked lenses. It's something we've given away like in the last stream already, which means basically it's a bit easier to shoot. I mean, well, clean is it's just like it's a running theme of today's stream. It's like we always kind of spoil the next thing ahead.
Exactly.
And it's like,
So pay attention.
So that means if you just buy a weapon, like a sniper scope, a sniper rifle, whatsoever, it will be having a normal proper lens, and you will be able to just normally look through it. Obviously, it will still be a little bit dirty, etc. It won't be completely. However, if you pick up, for example, a sniper rifle from another player, so therefore you get a contraband weapon, or if you play quick play, where you will find contraband weapons, there you will still have the cracked scopes. And that's the differentiating factor between them. So if you invest into a sniper rifle, you get it. Even if you get downed and someone picks you back up, you still have your regular one. However, if someone takes it from you, he will now have a cracked scope. So
well, the reason we know what it is, so we actually also know where our videos are. Otherwise, it would be really hard if we have to give them random names.
The thing is, like we just can't we can't like be patient enough as well. Like we want to see them.
I'm actually curious because nobody in the chat has mentioned it, but there was something that's not in the game before, and nobody has seen it.
Mention it.
Well, no, they can see it soon.
But
next week. Next week.
So we're not going to mention it.
No. But I just wanted to point out there was something they didn't see nobody mentioned.
See, now you made him curious. Good job there. All right, then we move on to the next points.
Okay, then we have exploding barrels and fire.
Yes, so these 3 points here are actually pretty interesting because they are, I think most of them at least, kind of like mangled together a little bit. So we're going to take them one at a time. So we've changed the rules for exploding barrels and how you can make them instantly explode. So one thing we've been doing is we've taken away the option for bullets to do that at all. So before it was like, or currently on live, long bullets or shotguns in close range, they could instantly detonate a barrel. Yeah. While the other bullets would always just set it on fire. Now all the bullets, all the basic bullets, hint hint, basic bullets, will only do this by setting it on fire. However, there is another change in here, which is that fire is now instantly detonating it. So what it means is, as you can see in the video, maybe you show the first one.
Yeah.
If you now use, for example, this alert trap, which has like pyrotechnics, which means this kind of fire, right? So you place it right next to the oil spill and the barrel. The moment it triggers, systemically, it goes up in flames instantly. Now, there is a second example you can use for this. There's a second one here, which is the flare pistol. So all of a sudden, the flare pistol has a pretty good use there of instantly detonating.
Flare pistol is really helpful to light on armors. Excuse me.
Yes. But now you can do more things. So that's the difference now, that no longer will you be able to just use your Mosin Nagant or your uppercut to instantly blow up the barrels next to players. So it kind of tames those long bullet weapons a little bit. So they just follow the same rules as all the other bullets. So need to have a second follow-up shot. However, everything which has a fuse, be that you throw like a firebomb directly on a barrel, it instantly blows up. You throw a flare on the barrel, it instantly blows up. So fire becomes an instant thing, and that is just very important. See, that's the drumstick again for the next one. All right, let's go. I think they can't hear it anymore.
It's actually Fab. He's just there drumming.
All right, so then we have another improvement here, which is if you throw dynamite through fire, it doesn't blow up instantly anymore. So as you might have noticed or probably felt or perceived on your own account multiple times, losing hunters over it, is that you try to throw dynamite through fire, it instantly blows up. And very often you are closer to fire, which means you instantly blow up. This is changed so that there is a bit of a delay. It still triggers the dynamite. It still triggers the fuse. So as you can see, it wasn't the full 4 seconds. It was just like half a second to a second later. So there's a small delay so that as you throw it, at least there's a high chance that while it might blow up still very quickly, at least it doesn't blow up on your side of the fire, or rather on the enemy side of the fire. So in this case, as you can see, firebomb first. And now one problem that has also been happening is this, where you throw it past the lantern, and it would normally blow up directly in your face up there unintentionally. Like who would expect that would be the case? Now at least it just kind of like glances and sets the lantern on fire, but continues then for like another second or so to blow up. So and it did it in like an additional like what you call like safety feature to kind of make it a little bit easier.
I see a lot of people are happy with this change.
Yeah, I think so too.
I died so many times to this.
So yeah, that's just important for us that with 1.0 we kind of like try to wrap up a couple of these like long-lasting problems where just like certain systemic things in the game kind of worked against the player a little bit too much, and that this way we make them a bit more consistent, a bit easier, and less become less of a problem, especially if it might result in player death.
That's a good question. Can a hunter on fire instantly ignite a barrel?
No, hunters on fire don't ignite anything. So the only enemy that does that is the emulator once you've triggered him. But we tried this out actually in the beginning, where we had like the player do it like a fire damage around him, so you could kind of hug enemies. The problem was that you would try to run away from something, like get too close to this barrel, or just run over that oil spill, and all hell breaks loose and actually gets you killed very often. So it felt very punishing, very restrictive. So that's why we said at least what the upper body is maybe burning, but the legs not. So you don't set anything on fire.
Okay. I mean, yeah, we'll just go.
Yeah, the next one.
Oh well, we did that still as well. The smoking gun barrels.
Yeah, so what you can see here is very, very subtle. So there will be another video in a bit. We've improved muzzle flashes. We've improved gun smoke. So as you can see very thinly there, if you look at the tip of the barrel, after the shot you see smoke rising up, which is actually a pretty cool feature, much more immersive. So with the pistols, like just a bit of a particle pass.
Yeah.
It's subtle enough that it doesn't really affect you when you aim down the sides, like so this doesn't completely like block your view, etc. But in general it feels just so much nicer with the gun smoking everywhere. You can, I think, just show it. Oh, wait, no, it's fine. Let's just leave the other one. So yeah, just visual improvements, and it feels more like you actually have one of those like revolver 6-shooters smoking in your hand, and it feels really, really good.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
World changes. Ooh, level stuff.
So we have a new thing.
So a new thing. We did not record a video in time for this one, so we're not going to show this one today. We might do this maybe at a later stream, or worst case, you will have to see it first time on the test servers, like a couple weeks online. Now, the poison barrel, what does it do? We talked about the hive improvements earlier, and the poison barrel is basically a mix of the poison bomb and the hive bomb. So think of it as a third barrel. Obviously, that barrel doesn't ignite, right? It just breaks apart and reveals the filthy things inside, like. And when it shatters, and it can shatter from even a crossbow bolt, like people can use different weapons to kind of trigger them. While normally, like an explosive barrel, the bolt will just stick in there, and that's it. It basically releases a hive swarm, and that one goes searching for the closest threat. So this is kind of interesting for you to kind of like use that when players are close by, in order to kind of like steer things up a little bit. The poison barrel has a lesser chance to be spawned into the world than the other two types, but at some of the places it's actually rather an interesting option. On top of that, it also has a bit of an poison radius, a small poison cloud on it. This is not the 5-minute lasting one. It's for the proper grenade. Think of it closer to, for example, what the spider is doing when you're spitting around. But it still becomes a bit of an air denial thing that you don't necessarily walk through. But like technically, what you can also do is you throw like a decoy of some sort. You draw the AI close to it. You again throw like another decoy at the barrel. Barrel shatters. All the grunts get poisoned, they take them out silently. So this is like another option for you where the barrel is around to maybe kill groups of enemies from the AI side without actually making too much noise.
And then we have a bunch of map changes, so we'll just scroll through them.
Yeah, so we start with the Stillwater Bayou map. Just gonna go through them quickly. So this one here is Catfish. You might be very familiar with this area here. With the stacks, etc., the woodlogs. Now we've kind of cleaned this up a little bit. So level design went through and can identify these paths. So we have a lot of telemetry of like where are players very likely to go, where usual choke points. So that's why in the previous streams also they've continuously been up to optimizing the maps, etc. I mean, the stuff that Sven has been showing around is really awesome of like seeing kind of where people are going. And based on what we learned from that, we've done like another pass here. And as you can see, like you don't have to like kind of manage to get over the wood anymore. You can kind of move around a little bit more. The paths have been opened a little bit. As I'm gonna go through this again a little bit more, you see like that overall everything has been cleaned up a little bit, different options. So you can actually have firefights around this, etc. There's a different angle from the same compound here. So this is what is currently on live. You can see lots of water. And then we've kind of cleaned this up a little bit to give you a bit more cover options, different ways for you to approach, get around, have some shelter as you try to push towards the compound, get up the ramp, for example. So things have moved around a little bit. As you can see, also we've kind of taken away the water a little bit closer around the trees. So you have like these safe spots that if a water devil is chasing you, you might actually get, I can see it on the right side there, actually have a chance to kind of like move around a little bit to one of these little like earth islands basically, and get around there. That's the same compound now from the south side. Again, you have the big open lake, very characteristic for this this bayou area down there. And again, we've kind of cleaned it up a little bit. So we've made sure that we've kind of decluttered some of the areas, but also again pull the water back a little bit so you can more easily move between these islands and just like have a nicer overview, and don't really rely on gator lags to even have a chance to traverse this area. Yep. Then this is on the east side of the same compound. Again, you kind of notice the little pier thingy that extends out there, where sometimes a clue can be found. Again, small things here which kind of clean it up a little bit, put a bit more kind of receded the water a little bit, put up the earth a little bit, and give you a bit more cleaner ways. Now this is closer to the Catfish main area, or main building. As you can see here, at the moment there's like lots of like corners. You can see like next to the ladder on the left side there's always been like a couple of boxes you could easily hide in this corner. So it was a bit awkward and very often kind of disrupted the flow of playing. So we kind of clean things up a little bit here. So as you can see, the ladder is now flat there. There's a bit more cover, so you can actually get up the ladder without being shot through the door. Everything has been kind of cleaned up so far. You can see actually in the far distance, the one from the very first screenshot with the wood logs, how we kind of open the paths left and right of it, and kind of change the windows a little bit more. So
green window.
It's basically just like making sure that like it becomes better fortifiable position, but also one which has fairer ways of getting close to it. So yeah, then this is actually if you move from Catfish closer to Slaughterhouse. As soon as you have like the very long road on the right side, you often have like the exits you can go to the extraction vehicle. And this building here was always a bit of a weird one, right? Like it never really felt like it was really giving you much of a thing, right? Usually we just run past it, etc. It was hard to see proper fights around this area. So what we've been doing is we've kind of like opened this area up a little bit more, giving you like another cut through the lake area, repositioning the building somewhat, having one of the watchtowers there. Yeah, like so you can see like there's a little ladder that allows you to even go up on the roof, so you can use that maybe to kind of like even do long range shooting against the compound or any enemies that move around there. So it gives you a lot of different options of moving around the world and just flanking, etc., without being bogged down completely.
You need like a bongo cat every time this happens.
So it's the previous one, and
there's a very big change.
This is the how we do it 1.0. In general, as you can see, also like with the trees in the distance, if we kind of cleared up a little bit, we took out some of the trees where they really didn't add much. just like to make sure there's more clearer firing sectors, but obviously still enough cover there for you to move around, especially now with the changes to how trees provide you cover. Then we have another change here. So this is the northeast side of the same compound. Again, one of the areas you are very familiar with as usually being very water devil infested. And here again, the same island approach of just like making sure that some of the water goes a little bit back, giving you a chance to hop between the islands and just move around this a little bit more easily without completely blocking off the entire area, this entire flank of approaching compound in case water devils will be spawning here. Then we're moving to the southwest. So this is Gator Huts. As you can see here, this is basically the back of the screenshot is against the edge of the map, right? You see like Devon range in the far like distance. The left
corner.
Yeah. And as you see like the little tree house right in the front, where very often you can find the clue. So what we've been doing here is we've added additional cover, etc. Made sure there's a bit more concealment as you go to and away from this, so it doesn't become such a easy way to prey on players from a distance. Overall, again, with the trees in the distance, as you can see, we kind of like grouped and packed them together a little bit differently. Just made sure there's like different lines of fire, but actually more reliable cover as well. So
yeah, especially now you can't get shot through trees.
So this is the same compound, just from the other side. So this is like looking from the Devon direction at Gator Huts, as you can see here. Just a bit of cleanup. Again, the same island concept, giving you a couple of points in between. Like this area here, for example, was rarely populated. Like you would find very few players actually crossing the water here. Most would either take a right or a far left swing. So now you have like an additional option, kind of pushing a thread through like to the center there, and kind of responding to, like, for example, like birds on either side, or depending on how enemies or what else etc. are placed around.
Yes.
Then we move on to Devon range. So as you can see here, the
I can smell this.
the boss building at Devon. Now what we've done here is we kind of cleaned up the place a little bit. So before you couldn't really go on the roofs that easily. Like there was a ladder in the far back on the center. You could kind of reach a little gap in the center. You can see the hay behind it, like to get in, sneak inside and drop down. Overall, the roofs were very much like torn open, which means it was very easy to throw grenades for the top inside this area, which was very frustrating. So what we've been doing is we've kind of like closed the areas down a little bit, made sure that like there's clearer paths, less cracks in the wall, like you kind of like see through, etc. Everything is more streamlined and focused. You see there's a window added up there now. There's an additional ladder, so there's a different way for getting up on the roof. So overall, just increasing accessibility and the option for players to kind of move around the compound, have interesting fights. And that's just the outside of this compound. We have a couple more shots from different angles, and the inside also. So this is same thing, just in this case looking from the northeastern direction. As you can see here again, the roofs have been kind of cleaned up. We've actually added a little window up there in the top center. As you can see, like it was just a gap. Now it's at least you hear when someone climbs up there and opens it to maybe throw something inside. You hear it, you have a chance to respond to it, etc. Just everything becomes a bit more readable. Yeah, so otherwise this one has a bit minor changes. Then here, this is the long boss arena. Same treatment here. As you've seen, like these little windows we had there, these little portholes, like almost like these cannon portholes from like a pirate ship. They were always very low, right? So you always needed to crouch next to them, and they were kind of like a bit awkward to kind of look down, look through. You couldn't really get away quickly. So what we've been doing is we've been reshaping this. So the windows have been raised up a little bit, so actually they are now from a standing height, so you can look around more easily. And we've actually added access into the barn through this little roof gateway here. So you see like the little bigger window we have in the center, you can use to kind of walk through to get inside. Like in the old version, it wasn't possible. There was just a gap through explosives through, so we kind of closed this as well in order to make these like grenade spam into the compound situations a bit less likely to happen. But on the same side, we kind of added one more entrance into this area. Obviously, you kind of hear them when they move over the metal sheets, right? So it's not like the most covert way probably of doing it, but it just kind of like makes it more interesting to fight around this place.
Yes.
Now this is looking from the north to the south of the same building, so the other side basically. As you can see here, we've kind of like done the same treatment with the windows. They're a little bit higher now. A bit more cleanup around the corner on the far left side where we had this kind of half destroyed, wrecked stagecoach bandwagon thingy. So it's clearer now. It's easier to see. We kind of barred the windows up there so that you can actually kind of like move around there a little bit more easier and have just clearer paths overall. So it's more of a cleanup than a complete redesign in this case. Now this is the inside of the big barn at the same place. So basically, I'm going to go back. So inside the part
like
here on the right,
right?
on the right side, yeah. So basically, they have like the big double doors on the far right where you see the fire. Yeah, and like so I'm going to go back to this one. So this is basically this corridor as you go inside. So this is how it looks at the moment, and we've cleaned this up a little bit. So now you have a ladder actually going up. This is like where before you could just drop down. You also have a chance out of this area through this wall. And before there was like this crouch height like entrance into the boss arena, which was giving you like it was very vulnerable, right, to go through this one because you can limit it just like crouch through and then usually get like a headshot. Now it's a proper door, which means you can bar it from the inside if it's a barred door. Otherwise, at least you can clearly breach it, or if it's breached, you can run through it.
The evil flap is gone.
Evil flap, yeah. It really was hard to push into the boss arena if they knew you were coming from this direction. So yeah, that looks all a bit more cleaned up and just a little bit nicer. I'm not 100% sure about the rules of this door. I think it's one of those doors that is always barred, but it could be maybe that sometimes it's open. I'm not 100% sure. Okay. If so, at least it adds a bit more replayability, that sometimes it works better than others. So then we're going to move on to the mill in the far north. A very, very, very typical compound. A very, very clear sides of line of sights. Line of sights was the word. Like easy to kind of move on the roofs, etc. But there was still certain dead ends and a bit of awkwardness inside this compound. So we've cleaned this up a little bit as well. So level designers kind of went in and made sure that there's more looping back type of things, right? You can go back inside from different areas. So as you can see here, they kind of extended.
And that's exactly where the clue is.
Exactly. So not, all of a sudden you don't have a dead end up there anymore. Like there was a bit of a problem, right? You climb up the ladder inside, and then there's someone sitting there with a shotgun. Like you need to find this really weird angle in order to get him out of there, unless you find like any explosives or whatever. Like a firebomb on you. So now at least there is an additional way of getting through. Also, like some of the cracks have been closed. Some of the wood panels are closer now, so you can't see through the small cracks that easily. Obviously, there's little places where this is possible. But overall, you can now loop around, get to this. It just helps the flow of moving around this area a little bit more. Yeah, exactly. That's the other side of this one. As you know, here as well, we have the ladder leading up, and then it was a bit of a dead end otherwise up there. So sometimes you have some really awkward fights when you're in the inside, which is very easy defendable. The other guys try to get up there, and then they get pushed back, and it's ended up very often to be not really an area you could be easily in control of. So again, here level design went in, identified some of these areas, opened up like a little window. So you can see like the shutters, the green shutters. You can open this up for a window, which means you can actually go inside the building from this area as well. And just makes everything a bit cleaner. Plus, as you can see below, there is like an additional entrance into the boss arena. It's barred, but it gives you one more option to maybe blow this open, use a sledgehammer, cut your way in, force your way in from multiple directions, and makes it a bit harder to defend from the inside. Yeah. This same compound again. This is basically the front door. Now here, some minor adjustments. For example, in this case, what we've been doing is, you can see inside the big door there, you see the ladder in the background. Like things have been moved around in order to accommodate for the window you see there. Like you can reach from the outside with a green shutter if you open it. Yeah. And we kind of moved the door a little bit more into the center, so that the two doorways, the one if you move through the big gate and then turn right, and this one are not too close together. Okay, so that at the moment you can basically just throw one container bomb and seal them both off together almost. Though it becomes a little bit harder to kind of control the space. So yeah. Still at mill, we take a look at the other boss arena. As you can see here, lots of windows, right? Like the whole place has lots of openness in it. However, it's just perceived because actually, usually from the other side, they were barred, or the ones on the top floor, they were kind of like pointless because they were halfway across the stairs, etc. So it was a bit overkill. So again, level design kind of identified some of the more important ones and redesigned this place. So instead of having 4 windows up there, we actually have like 2, which we can actually close. So even if someone shoots the glass, you can close the shutters. And the ones on the bottom floor on the far right side actually have been clearly ported up, because I mean you couldn't see through them anyways, right? It just gave you that weird feeling that as if you could, but now you can more clearly understand where could a sniper, for example, be sitting, and you can kind of like identify that, and it just in general have a clearer language of what to expect at this particular compound.
Yeah.
So yeah. Then we move on to Slaughterhouse. So this is the living quarters at Slaughterhouse. Again, one of those areas which, especially if you play quick play a lot, might turn out to be a pretty hard place to get a player out of again if they're the wellspring carrier, which is under the roof, basically the little room where sometimes you have to clue. Yeah. With a bit of a dead end.
The one there, you mean?
The one on the left side, basically under the roof. So what we've done here is kind of added like a second entrance into this, so you have a ladder leading up. You can now destroy the window, which means you can actually force your way into this from multiple directions, so it becomes less easy to camp this area, and just basically make sure that it's more of a nicer flow around the building with different options rather than just going in the one staircase basically, and then you can lock the place down almost completely from one side while not having to worry about people pushing in from the other side.
Exactly.
So there's more, and we're now at Stillwater.
We have so many. I wonder how far you are currently.
I think we're probably like 2/3 through at the moment.
66. We're halfway through. Not even through. Halfway. I also have these.
All right. I still need to drink sometimes in between, but I think we'll manage. We'll get through this.
My whole bottle almost.
All right, so Stillwater, what did we do here? Similar treatment as we've explained for some of the other compounds, just like opening up new pathways, closing down some of the open roofs, or like the closing down the cracks in the walls. So with this one, again, we kind of barred up some of the sides, so it's less likely for you to snipe people and shoot inside, etc. It serves more of a cover function. However, we also open up additional paths. So like here we see with a ladder leading up, and then another entrance into the upper floor of the long barn. You just have a chance to kind of like move around, flank around, and in general be a bit more clever about your move around this compound.
Can you fall inside the dock then? I mean, that's
not this one. I think it's very hard to get through this one.
How would you do it then? Jump out of the window?
Now, if you would wall through the window, I think you come down before.
Exactly.
Yeah, but there's other dog pounds like in other areas where you can actually end up inside, and if you don't kill the dogs before, well, it hurts.
The dogs will kill you. These changes are gonna come to both PC and Xbox. Just to give some information, because I saw also someone who asked. I can't wait for it to be on Xbox. It is already on Xbox Game Preview, but at the moment everything is planned for 1.0, so that means for both Xbox and PC.
Yeah, so currently Xbox Game Preview is on the level of update 5.0.
Yeah.
And has in addition the map updates from 6.0 as well as tutorial, and then moving forward step by step we also want to make sure that the versions kind of align, and that means everything we talk about here for 1.0 eventually also will catch up and find its way onto Xbox.
And we had an update today for the Xbox with some content. So,
yes. Yeah. You can show that again maybe during the recap.
Yeah. Oh, we're
you know what I did there. That would be fun to watch. All right, so different angle, same building in Stillwater still. Mm-hmm. So with the changes, you see like the roof section has been changed a little bit, so you can get up there and inside. Some of the roof parts have been barred up a little bit more. More minor stuff from this angle, but you can see like as you can now climb up these haystacks there and actually to get access on the roof from this side. Mm-hmm. While on the other side you have to use the ladder we just showed before.
Yeah.
So yeah, still water.
Still water.
So the living quarters on Stillwater, again, one of those areas. I think there's no player that's played Hunt that didn't get lost at least once inside this building.
Yeah.
At least I for sure got lost quite a lot. Now, what did we do to change this building up a little bit? So first off, we kind of like opened up more options to get on the upper floor. So there's like a ladder added on the outside, so you can climb up there. You can also, after you've climbed up the ladder, move left on the roof, drop down on this little balcony thingy there, and you can go into like through the window inside there as well. So just different options. But that wasn't really the biggest problem we had with this building, right? Actually, yeah, I think we're going to talk about this first this one, and then we go back to the other building. So this is the backside of the same building, as you can see with the neighboring buildings there. They were always kind of a bit of a separated thing. There was this little wooden bridge connecting at least further out in the middle building. But one thing was missing is getting you a chance to get onto the middle roof by different means than the building in the background. So now what we've added is a little ladder that allows you to go up from the smallest of the buildings, then go over to the other one, and then cross over. So there's a completely different path that if you climb up here, you can move across the roofs to the other building and kind of attacking from the high ground. And you can see like the balcony on the side and the rear building as well. So going back into the living quarters building. So the inside, as you know, people had some pathfinding issues there. Navigating this wasn't very nice. So we've kind of cleaned this up a little bit. So what you see now is actually more connecting doorways. The two buildings have joined together to become actually one more easily connected building. You don't need to navigate this maze at the back to get into the other side. You actually have the rooms be connected much clearer, and that means this area here will become much more of a center point for fighting, moving around, especially with the added roof access from the previous shots. So as you can see, this is maybe like an interesting shot. This is like the top-down view with with like the roof being removed. It's like little Barbie dollhouse, and then so as you can see here, like how weird it was to go through. Now it's so much nicer as you can actually move around. You have the doors connecting each of the main buildings, and so no matter what of the main entrances you take, you can kind of get to any place of the building much nicer.
Yeah.
And
is there? Oh no, it is outside. Never mind. I was like, is that building? But no, blind.
So basically, now this was the previous one. We had like two distant stairs. We had the wall. And then this one is the new one where one set of like stairs was removed, but we added more doors to kind of connect the rooms, and yeah, you can have your little fights now a bit more clearer in this one without completely random runs, not knowing where the other guys. Like it's much clearer, it's easier to fight. All right, that's so far for Stillwater.
Can we actually take a short break because I really want to get some more water and use the restroom, so we can do a real quick be right back.
I forgot water.
we are back again. Thank you. I'm a happy person again. Fresh water and an empty bladder. Okay, so we also have a bunch of level changes for Lost in Delta, which is obviously on the map. So yeah, let's go right in. Actually.
All right, let's open up the screenshots. All right, so as you know, Lost in Delta is a bit more of an open or more open map. Less water, more grass fields, etc. But this also means much easier to track players and find them, etc. So with a couple of the previous updates, we've kind of like identified some of the areas where we wanted to kind of make sure people also have a fair chance of kind of moving around a bit more less detectable, and we've continued with that. So as part of it, like some of the more exposed areas have received like additional like trees and bushes, etc. They're not just like wildly placed in there. It's actually so that we still have these open corridors of line of sight. So again, similar approach as with the islands and the bayou, right? It's more like pockets you kind of move between. So while this looks a lot more like densely populated here, actually it's just one example to make sure that you can't like easily shoot everybody coming from this direction, but kind of need to kind of move into a nice place, for example, get a high ground, etc., in order to continue doing that. So actually this was around Arden Parish. That was the northern road of Arden Parish, which is like on the center east side of the map. So here we have the arsenal, which basically with a very iconic railroad and the watchtowers. And what we've been doing in here is actually not outside, but actually the building you see in the center. So the building so far is very typical for this area here. We have lots of ladders and everything was a bit sometimes awkward to move around because obviously ladders give away your position. So very often we've kind of like moved in and actually changed them into like staircases, so it's much easier to navigate. There are still obviously ladders in the area, but it's more for the extra wear. So just making sure with the stairs that it's easier to kind of move up and down and have nicer fights rather than like only having one way of getting up there without using the ladder and then that possibly being camped. Everything is a bit more fluid, it's a bit nicer to move around. This is like the top floor of the same area here now, staircase leading up and making a bit more elegant to actually move to and fro. Then here, well, it's the compound to the east of that. We basically have like Bradley's Brickworks. We have like the long barn building that is on the west side of the compound. And over here, similar treatment as we've seen on, for example, the Vaughan range, is we kind of closed some of the roof sections up. We kind of boarded up the walls a little bit more. Where again we had a crouch entrance on the south side here, on the far left, where the oil spill is. We now have a proper door. So getting in and out, moving around has been much clearer, and it's a little bit harder to kind of like snipe from this building, from the inside of this building into the compound to the right, through all these small little cracks, etc. Everything is a bit, there we go. Everything is a bit more boarded up.
Oh, and they reverse?
Yeah. I think, no, this is just new ones.
Oh, okay, great.
Then same compound. There's the little building we have next to the gate that is slightly, if you extend the wall to the south side, slightly out of view here. This building as well was almost a bunker in some way or another, and that was a bit of a problem because it was kind of occupying the flow of blocking people too effectively from entering the compound unless they want to detour quite drastically. So here again, we kind of changed some of these typical bunkers, almost slits, to like proper windows, give you new ways of entering the building, and boarded things up a little bit more. It's the opposite side of the same building, as you can see. Like you have like another way of actually, if you go to this intermediate roof there on the right side, you can throw some explosives or whatever, or shoot inside from that half roof thingy. Before it was completely boarded up, and on the far left side,
and actually, got an actual lantern.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's like additional power thingy. So if you put the generator on, this area also gets illuminated a little bit more clearer. And for the safety of the player, we talked about the dock kennels before. This one actually had the problem that with a ramp in the background, you might actually, just walk on it and then fall inside. Now we boarded up a little bit, so safety inspection was there. They said it was a bit too hazardous, and so we've just boarded up a little bit, so it's not as easy to kind of accidentally fall in and get eaten. So this is some of the northern areas where we see like the typical grasslands, and here again, like using more fences, using a bit more in a clever way the trees and the bushes where needed in order to break line of sight where it's really a bit too far from how far you can see. It kind of helped a little bit to kind of board things up and make sure people are more funneled again and have nicer interactions and angles to shoot at each other. Here is Hemlock in the far southeast. Again, a compound that was very busy, very noisy. We kind of try to clear things up a little bit here as well, making it more interesting to fight because of all of the hanging tan cloth like stuff was just. It was very hard. It was very, very weird to kind of like fight around this place. Very often you would just overlook the enemy at this particular point. So again, we kind of made the center building a bit more solid, put like a wall around all these all the hides hanging there for drying, and just made sure that you can move around this with a more clearer understanding of like where to expect contact and maybe where you would be safe. So it's a different angle. Again, the roof kind of extends. It's like not as clear here. You actually can move underneath there as well, but again, clearer windows, doors, etc. Everything is a bit more cleaned up, nicer, less busy.
Especially
and makes it nicer.
A lot going on, exactly.
Then we're going to Lawson Station, so the big tower at Lawson Station. I mean, as you can see, like the elevator we added there in one of the last updates. Lots of open spaces again, like lots of cracks and missing wood planks, etc. Everything was a bit busy. Again, we've kind of moved it more into a structured format, so it's more reliable cover and shelter. So from the outside, it's more of a clean-up thingy, but the inside has changed quite a bit as well. So this is the top floor, as you can see, like the elevator door on the far back. And you had like the staircase around the corner moving down, and then on the right-hand side, this is when you had the connection through this, like, whatever you call it thing, this metal, coal thingy, buckets, conveyor, whatever.
Conveyor.
I don't know, slide. That's that.
Isn't it like
could be a coal chute, yeah. And now this place has been cleaned up a little bit. The staircase has been redecorated, and everything is a bit nice. A metal chute, yes. Thank you very much. So as you move around this top floor, everything looks a little bit more interesting, nicer, more meaningful in terms of what the purpose of the building is, etc. Also, as you come up from the metal coal chute thingy there, you also can directly move down the staircase, so there's a nicer flow in general if you move between buildings.
Trains passing through.
All right, then here we have the railroad tracks again heading. It's basically along the southern side, moving to the southwest of the compound. Very open space. It was very hard, for example, for like bounty carriers to kind of push out of this area, not getting ambushed a long distance, etc. So again, in the clever way, using trees, kind of breaking line of sight, creating these little cover islands in between, so that depending on your angle, you can see different other exposed but also concealed areas, and just made the whole thing a bit more easier to navigate and like more reliably feel secure for you if you move in a clever way. Same here as well. This is in the center, as you see this intersection between like on basically the swamp area on the center west side. So like Lawson Station being ahead of you. Very open, very exposed. Again, like keeping the line of sight pretty much the same, but making sure that some of the cover in between is a bit more pronounced, is a bit easier to read, and actually more efficient also to cover. You still will expose yourself as you cross the roads, etc. So they go from island to island, but at least whenever you are there, it's more reliable working as cover for you.
Needs a ladder.
Same thing here, same swamp area close by. Kind of like, it's maybe a bit harder to see here. If you do it fast, you see the other building in the background staying the same. So the new one, again, providing a bit more cover in this particular case to the right-hand side, still keeping it exposed to the left side. In general, allowing you to kind of move through this area. You can focus on the left side, but you kind of be rather safe against the right side until you push through these line of hedges and bushes and trees there.
Yeah.
All right. Then this is the next one. It's basically one of the. It's like south of prison, one of the bigger compounds that actually had more dead ends in it again, especially the top floor. And what we've done here is kind of added again ladders, closed some of the gaps, especially on the ground floor, so you can't as easily throw grenades inside. Again, the change primarily intended to allow you to kind of move around, circle around, have like a figure of 8, like kind of moving between different buildings and chasing each other's tails, basically, as you try to get a drop on the enemy. Different angle here, same procedure, same running theme. You see like the gaps between the wooden planks kind of be sealed up, but different options being added, like the window you can now vault into and kind of go through. Now this time I spot something. But so here, following all the same procedure, and the roof access, as you can see, with the 3 chimneys now on the left side, with a new version actually has a bit more cover. So as you drop out of the window, you're a bit more protected towards what's on the other side, allowing you to kind of use this as you push up then from cover from the concealed position.
Yeah, and then we are continuing. We're almost coming through. Just one for speaker.
Yeah, well, how much did we do? Like 25% now?
Yeah, it's, I mean, we're on slide. Oh no, we're getting to the end now, but we still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 videos left,
nice,
and
nice.
about 20 slides.
All right, AI improvements then. So what do we have in store for 1.0 here?
So emulator changes for the first one.
Yeah, so the emulator actually receives only very little changes because we're actually rather happy with him. However, what we don't like so much about him at the moment is, especially like in quick play, for example, or against newer players, how he can challenge you. Because you have to understand one thing with the emulator, he is the one AI you can't outrun. Like even with the Hellhounds, you can manage it because you can go indoors, etc. This guy just batters in the doors and still keeps on coming, and he is, especially like moving around as a bipedal, a lot more able to follow you and move inside indoor areas. Now, what we want to do with this guy is actually make sure that you can bring him down a bit more reliably. So he takes less shots to the body to bring down, but actually he takes, I think, against specific bullet types, maybe an additional headshot even to bring down. So it's about normalization rather than making him weaker in general. It's about making sure that if you just have a weak pistol, for example, and you just hammer at his body, you can still bring him down by force. You don't have to score the perfect headshots, but for those people who actually think that he's a bit too easy right now and actually usually go for, like, let's say, dodge or uppercut headshots against this guy, depending on the weapon you have, you might need like a 3rd headshot now and won't be able to do it in 2s. But just general firepower against him is more effective.
Does it also, what if you, I mean, it doesn't change anything for the dusters, right? If you just hit it with the
a little bit as well. Like, so with the body damage changes means like melee also overall is a bit more effective against him. So what you can do with this is that if you get one in your face and he's just like kind of like hammering at you, even if you don't have full stamina, you're not fully prepared for this fight, you can still kind of more easily wear him down. So it doesn't become as relying on the perfect hit combo, but actually, you mean he's gonna probably hit you, etc., right? But it's not as exhausting in order to bring one down. So everything is a bit easier, but otherwise he's still the same challenge as before. But we hope that specifically newer players or players playing quick play without having yet found good weapons just have an easier time against them.
I do see a lot of people ask about the spawn rate because I don't know if we have changed something or will be changing something for that, because I do know that a lot of people feel, and I mean, I noticed that myself as well, there are a lot of emulators.
Yes, so the system we have is basically a random system, right? Like, so we tell them these amount of specials is what we would like to kind of populate in this compound as people get close to activated, and then it kind of picks them. But sometimes it can pick just like a lot of emulators versus, let's say, a lot of hives or whatever else. But one thing we want to do for 1.0, something we'll be already testing locally, but we're still kind of like turning the knobs there and tweaking it, is actually like the composition of those, maybe reduce them compared to like for example the grunts, and some compounds might be more affected than others. It's more of a tuning balancing pass that level design is going through in order to find like a good ratio that sometimes like it doesn't feel too overwhelming encountering specials in general, which obviously the emulator can be very, very challenging if you have more than one in one area and they all trigger and they kind of come on you.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right.
The armor changes.
Armor changes. Also, again, a smaller set of changes. Basically, the armor, you wouldn't think it, but he actually learned. He learned from the emulator.
Smart boy now.
Yeah, very smart. So what he can do now is actually he can better indoors as well. So he has basically paid attention and seen what the emulator can do, and he can do that as well. So if you lock a door, he will kind of like try to batter through just in the same way. Obviously, he still prefers like an opening, right? So he might detour a little bit in order to get through an open area if he sees it. But in case you want to just like close the door in front of him, you might fool the normal grunt. You ain't gonna fool the armored.
Exactly. He's also immune to fire. No, that's a joke. I saw it.
All right.
Invincible, God mode. Can also shoot nitro bullets.
Yeah. So in general, this guy is rather the same dude from a behavior point of view, but battering doors, that's the new thing he learned, and he does that very well.
I wonder what else he can learn in the future.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. So on the grunts, similar story, minor changes primarily, but the grunts on that goes for actually all of the bipedal AI. They do have learned to taunt, so they kind of let out their frustration and anger if they can't get to you. So if you, for example, climb up somewhere, close the door, etc., and they kind of like, they don't just like stand there, like look at you. They actually go like, I want to kill you, I want to eat you. And because of that, the grunts, you will see that the most, I think, on, you'll see them just kind of like taunting and just like go like, I want to really eat you. Now, the other thing they've learned is that right now it's very easy to trick them, and that goes for all of the bipedal enemies. So there is a small little wooden barrel or box or whatever. Just climbing on that, even if it means the guy would easily be able to reach you, it would basically mean, nope, I cannot navigate to this place, I cannot attack this place, I will just stay there. So not only will they taunt, but also
will be frustrated.
they will actually reach out and try to attack you if they would have a chance to actually reach you. So you might need to climb a little bit higher now to be really on the safe side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hive changes. So again, this is mostly on the systemic nature. We're doing changes to the hive swarm, and that we've mentioned before affects the hive bomb, but also the new poison barrel. But the hive itself also obviously benefits here. It's like that hives or the hive swarms can be defeated, which means if you just melee against them enough times, you can also disperse them and dissipate them like much faster. So you don't necessarily have to always find the hive in order to shut out the swarm. There is a more immediate effect now, but obviously if you want to avoid having continuous swarms being sent towards you, obviously you need to find your own killer eventually.
Will she recast or resend the hive after a certain amount of time?
Well, she does it at the moment as well, but the rule...
Yeah, but if you remove the...
Then a new one will be sent after a short amount of time,
yeah.
So it's basically, you destroyed her homing missile, so she'll fire another homing missile.
Yeah.
So apart from that, it's mostly consistency with her, like the hive's swarms also are less likely to clip through walls now, for example, so everything should be a little bit more manageable. So if you close a door, the swarm has less of a chance to kind of find a way inside. It's not 100% guaranteed, because I mean these buildings are kind of open and exposed, but for the most part you should be more safe now and be able to use more common sense things like closing a door to avoid the things actually following you.
Yeah.
All right. Water Devil changes. Again, we're talking about mostly for 1.0 bringing things together, like consistency as well as balancing. For the Water Devils, what we've been doing is kind of looking at what is the most problematic part. I mean, the idea of them is still remaining the same. They're a obstacle, right? They will deny a certain area, make it harder for you to fight your way through this. So you might need to consider an alternative path, or invest into ammunition, or just engaging with them in some way in order to allow you to force through. Now, for the Water Devil, that means we've kind of tailored and changed the reaction radius a little bit, so it doesn't sense the players entering water that far out. And if they do, it's much easier to counter them. However, if you just move around the area, it's also more likely for them to reappear at other areas, so there's a different saturation in there. Again, it's mostly on the balancing side. It's something that it's best seen by just then, once we have it ready, go on the test server and try it out. But it feels a bit fairer, and then it will they take less damage. Sorry, they take more damage, so it's easier with any weapon you have to kind of at least kind of stun them or get them away for the moment. Obviously, you still need to invest by using ammunition to do so.
I love the chat. They're like, Water Devil now follows you out of the water. Water Devil has a gun. Water Devil steals your gun. Flying Water Devil. Earth Devils confirmed.
All right, so that's that part. And then we have Hellhound changes. So this is where we have the first video, I think.
Yeah. Hellhound also got smarter.
We have audio?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no. Got muted. Sorry about that.
So this is so far so good. But what are they doing? They're actually going underneath fences now. So you might need to reevaluate your tactics for how to get rid of them, because while they won't be able to jump over fences, they're not that smart yet. At least if there's a gap, they will go through. So this is like obviously systemic, which means whatever like areas you go through. Sometimes hopping over the fence was like enough to trick them, because they would need to move like 20-30 meters around. But if there's like another like different like gap to crouch underneath, they will take advantage of it now.
Yeah. It's not pretty. The doggies are smarter.
All right, then we have the meathead changes. Now this is where we're getting into the bigger changes actually. So the meathead has seen a much stronger design iteration, which has changed its behavior quite drastically. So what we've tried to do is make sure that he works much better as this choke point defender, where he's kind of like covering an area. The problem is that since he doesn't really have a head, and therefore he's kind of robbed of a number of his senses, it's harder for him to fulfill the role of a gatekeeper. Now, for this, obviously, he's relying on the leeches, the symbiotic like insects that kind of live inside him, and that are also moving around the area, and they kind of designate targets for him. So we've kind of revamped this mechanic a little bit, made it a bit clearer, and the primary reason here was to make sure that these leeches actually fan out, spread out a lot more, and become much more effective sensors for him. Maybe just show the first video, and then we see it. So as you can see here, gatekeeper, like you need someone to deal with him if you want to go through, and you see these leeches moving around. Now you can use decoys, for example, to kind of like distract them, and they are also much more receptive to, in this case, gunfire. So they come and search for you. They have a very short sight range, but their audible range is rather big. So in this case, obviously, they couldn't really sense you there, but they were closely investigating. So they move a lot faster now. They move a lot more aggressively.
Are they faster? Yes, they're faster.
Every time you kill one, obviously, because of the symbiotic relationship, meathead will get angry. And the moment they get close enough and they alert him, then he'll come to the position and try to strike at you. Obviously, you can see you can kind of still disengage with him, but overall, you have to be a lot more mindful of the leeches now. They also have a much nicer distribution, so they will try to spread around the area a lot better. But a valid tactic can be to kind of like try to see if you can use like throwing knives, etc., to eliminate the leeches fast, to then rob him of the sensors and still manipulate them. Another change here is that the meathead senses when someone poisoned is nearby. So that opens up all sorts of options, obviously, to kind of like mess with other players. So for the meme slingers out there, probably opens up new opportunities. But the main thing is that if you get poisoned, either because a leech has poisoned you, or maybe because someone threw a poison bomb or hive bomb at you, or whatever systemically, he might be onto you much faster. So I think he has like roughly 20 meters or so of sensing range for poison. So if you get attacked by a hive and there's a meathead around, he might actually also be aggroed from that one. So that's rather interesting. So this is just a second clip where you can see it from the top-down position, just to show a little bit more like how the leeches are kind of moving around the area and moving with him. So they always try to like form a perimeter around him, like a sensor net basically that hopefully catches the prey so that he can then move in and slaughter it. Here again, like you use some decoys and the leeches kind of like get attracted to it. So you can use that to be tactical. Obviously, you can kind of draw the leeches to a specific place, maybe kill them all with a firebomb quickly. Then therefore he's blind for the moment until he spawns new leeches in. Or you can just use that, for example, to get them away from like a clue, so that you can actually quickly get the clue while they're distracted and actually leave the meathead be. So overall, there's a lot more interaction with him. He becomes more an actual enemy and not something that you can so easily choose anymore.
Yeah.
It's actually another thing is that the different weapons they have, he basically has different attack types for them as well. So depending on whether he has like the big hook or the claw, like some of them do a little bit more, a little bit less damage, or cause bleeding or not. So always have a look out for what weapon he actually has.
Oh my god, someone actually joked and that's me died. I remember this gunsmack messing with me like that.
Alright, so that's so far for the normal AI cast. Let's talk about the bosses.
Yeah, so we have two bosses that we're changing, which is the assassin and the spider.
Yes.
And obviously it's because we already did some changes, for example, to the butcher, and where we gave him the rage mode and such. And we want to have the bosses on the same level.
They need to be normalized so that it shouldn't be down to the player thinking, oh, this is the easiest of the bosses, I always go for him. It should be about against which boss do I have the best equipment, or which is the one I enjoy the most playing, rather than which one is the easiest, which one can I exploit, abuse, or quickly get rid of the fastest. So trying to normalize across them. And for us, the baseline has been the changes we've been doing to the Butcher, as well as the new Assassin. So it's mostly about what we did in order to elevate the Spider on a similar level, but also still obviously across all of them to kind of balance by doing a couple changes here and there.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Spider.
Already saw one
Well, one of the biggest changes for the Spider actually is that she is very aggressive now. So what you can see is she is having a frenzy mode. So you know the frenzy mode from the Butcher. If it takes too much damage, it goes basically completely berserk. And the same thing actually happens here. So it always comes down to understanding when is it when you should attack her, and when is it when you should be more evasive and trying to avoid her. So
no, it doesn't no longer knock you down.
Yes.
Right.
So in this particular attack, it doesn't. So when
So it keeps it.
I think so. When she actually jumps at you successfully,
I
that's what
thought
happens.
that was
Yeah.
changed. Okay.
We still experimenting with it. It might not. It depends. But here you can see again, like enough hits were made. So now boss becomes aggressive. Now this is when you want to run. This is when you want to kind of avoid it. It's the same thing with the Butcher. When he's getting all aggroed up, you don't want to stand and fight. You actually want to take your distance. Maybe this is when your partner can try to hammer at the boss at the same time. And just gives you overall different pacing of understanding when to attack, when not to attack. The boss overall, the Spider overall, is just a bit more aggressive, so you should have a lot less downtime where she moves around and you're trying to follow her all the time. It's more that there's a continuous attacking sequence against you, but obviously the same rules apply. Also, if the Spider is jumping at you and you hit her, actually she doesn't knock you really back, like so you basically don't take any damage from it. So it's kind of like you defeated the attack mid-air, so there's also obviously counter ways. For the Spider, we're still in the tuning process, so specifically that frenzy mode when she's onto you, when she's attacking, we might still do some work with the speeds, etc., to give you a fair chance to moving away, similar to what we did on the Butcher. But the idea is that there's a similar pacing of now is your turn to attack, now is the boss's turn to attack, and it's kind of like finding the right moments in between when you want to deal damage or when you want to run. Also doing frenzy, just like with the Butcher, the boss takes less damage, so it's also like another incentive for you to kind of try to hammer at her while she's chasing your partner, for example.
Yeah. And then we have some Spider bloopers.
So basically, as you tune the Spider, we tried different things out, right? And this one was actually pretty funny, so we want to show it to you. So we tried experimenting with the speeds, but sometimes we get a little bit ahead of ourselves. So this wasn't really meant to be like that, but it was actually a pretty funny moment where during testing, the Spider was really trying really, really hard to get to you. And
trying really hard.
So yeah, sometimes we're also having fun moments. So that was actually rather unexpected and interesting, and game dev can be fun.
Exactly. So assassin changes. We're up to the last one.
Yes. 2
videos.
Okay, so the assassin has received just a little bit of tuning. So primarily it's about the clones and what happens when he's in the cloning phase. So you can see like the clones are happening. Now this is basically the frenzy mode of the assassin. So following the same rules as Butcher and Spider. This is where you want to kind of get rid of these clones rather quickly. The thing is, like before it was just like happening once. Now it's a phase, which means he's doing this over and over and over again until the frenzy is passed. So same balancing. You want to see when is the time for you to attack, when is the time for you to avoid. In this particular case, this is a phase which absorbs a lot of ammunition and lots of stamina, etc. as you try to get the clones away. So again, more easily something where you want to run away rather than stand and fight. And then as the assassin is back, this is when you do the regular attacks again. So that's that. And then we have a second thing that's basically just to make the assassin feel a bit more connected to the world. If you counter the assassin close by, as you can see here, it shows you that insect screen effect that you normally know from the clones, also when he disintegrates. So if you kind of like use melee attacks, etc. against the assassin in order to kind of like force him back into the swarm state so that he then finds a new place for you to attack you from, it will be similar here that if you do that, there's going to be bugs on your screen for a moment, kind of disorienting you. It's usually not enough for you to really have like a strong impact on your vision. unlike the clones, which do this for much more lasting time because they kind of explode in your face there, basically just covering you with bugs all around, and then making it easier for the actual assassin to strike at you. This one is more of an immersive effect a little bit to make you feel a bit more connected, and actually that the guy bursts into insects, and if you're too close, well, you get insects all over you.
Yeah. Okay, that was it for this long...
Yes. I think we made it, right?
Yeah, we made it. We made it. This is it. So to do I mean, we'll just put it on the screen to give a recap of some of the things that we have seen today. It is a lot, so I'm not going to go through everything.
Don't do the full thing.
But tactical ping, for example, is something I feel many people mentioned, which means it can now ping in the game where you can, if you're playing with a partner that doesn't have a microphone, for example, or your microphone doesn't work, or you don't speak the same language, to still give, some hints to, there's an enemy there or whatever.
Like non-verbal communication.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which hopefully improves toxicity. Who knows? And also we have a lot of level changes. Sorry, a lot of weapon changes.
Yeah, I'm just going to go through a little bit.
Okay.
Actually, let's mention it as well. So for all the Xbox players, we have released the first content update for Xbox Game Preview. So you can get a couple of the weapons that some of the PC players might already be familiar with, now also on Xbox as you play Game Preview. These packs will be released over the next weeks more and more, and that means some of these packs will become available rather soon. This is the first one, Close Combat 1, introduces a couple additional melee weapons, the Stamina Shot, as well as a new trait, the Gator Legs.
Yes.
For the 1.0 changes...
quality of life improvements. You can bind things like vaulting and sprinting now individually.
Yep.
Obviously, we are getting controller support, and the ping system.
The ping system you mentioned,
we got some new traits. Maybe a lot of ones for being silent, just scroll through.
Yeah, it's basically just a few of those which are mostly about maneuvering. Iron Repeater is a bigger change because in this case it is a change in how you use repeater rifle, so the Winfield rifle. If you don't have the trait, there's a different animation where you kind of like are being moved a little bit off target, but you actually do stay in in your iron sights in ADS, unlike, for example, the bolt action rifle, etc. But it still means you have to learn a little bit, kind of like keeping the target on sight. If you have the trait, everything is like it is at the moment.
Exactly. Can be diffused. That's actually good. I'm really curious how many people are going to try the Dauntless, where you have to go in and you can turn off a.
And how many people will actually succeed?
Yeah, that's like, maybe we should do like a mini contest for this. I think that would be cool.
So some changes to existing traits. So we're using Darksight more in order to reveal, for example, the fired like crossbow bolts or the thrown knives, etc., to easier retrieve them. And Resilience gives you a bit more health back, so it becomes more of a competitive choice.
Better, huh?
And we also had one more change here, which was that the Vigilant trait, which is a new trait here, allows you to see traps again, also using Darksight. Then the weapon changes.
Oh, well, we got 3 new weapon, variants mainly.
Variants, yeah.
We got the extended for the BORNHEIM, which will individually refill the bullets, but you have obviously a bigger capacity. We have the LEBEL TALON, which is obviously the LEBEL marksman, or the LEBEL sniper with a talon. Wow, my brain is like...
Talon for melee, marksman for sniper.
Marksman for sniper, which obviously comes with those new fancy scopes that are, if you haven't dropped them or got them contraband, not trapped.
Yep.
So we have a dirt system that's coming as well, which you can see here in this GIF. I really like how this is made. It's really cool.
So they can clock up. No gameplay relevance, it's just aesthetic, and you can clean them up between missions as well. If you find a contraband weapon from, like if you pick someone's weapon up, for example, it will be dirtier. What we've also done is alongside made sure that if you have a contraband weapon, that the scopes are only there cracked. So if you buy a sniper weapon, it has clean pristine lenses, nothing cracked in there, nothing dirty. But if you pick it up from a dead guy, for example, if you find it in quick play, that's when the contraband rule comes in. That's when it will be cracked, as it is right now in live.
And if you buy the weapons, they're not already clean. You always buy them with like one of the.
They kind of used where like this is like a perfect look, but like what you see is the next step. This is more like how you get handed them, like some poor hunter just like died in his wood. This is his weapon. You're gonna get it, and you buy it from the retailer. And obviously you can always clean it up if you want to, but you can also just play with it as is.
Yeah.
Weak versions of stamina antidote changes, also increasing the time. So the stamina shot goes up from 1 minute to 10 minutes,
10, yeah.
while the weak shot is basically like the one we
Stays.
currently have, like 1 minute. And then we have the weak version of the Antidote, which is like 6 minutes compared to 60 minutes for the one we currently have at the moment. Again, difference in price, etc. So you can pick the one you like the most.
Yeah. So we have some hive bomb changes, poison as well, but the hive bomb will now swarm not towards you. Even if you throw it, it will not go to you or your partner, and it will go. Also, you're able to melee it or only melee, right?
Yeah, you can counter it.
Yeah, counter it.
So if the swarm is on you, you can kind of make it. So basically, a bit more grace period. So obviously, eventually, if you move around too much around this area, it will also attack you. But it's much easier, much more likely to instantly go after the target, so they can't get away that easily. Plus, important point here is also that after the hive bomb has killed, it dissipates. So it won't become a threat to you after it actually killed the guy you wanted to kill.
Okay, then we have a bunch of weapon changes. I mean,
minor stuff. It's something you guys can go through as well on your own. Nothing really standing out too much there. We also have like improvements visually to aim helpers, like effects on the fuses, so that if you set something on fire, like a fire bottle or like dynamite, your hunter will be kind of illuminated a little bit, which means it's easier for other people to see what you're about to do.
And you can see burning. Wall penetration, aka wall penetration. I know. We reworked a lot of that. That's actually, well, I mean, it will probably be too much to watch the videos now. But,
no, just watch them
I would
early in the
definitely
stream.
watch the replay. Yeah, we can change the wall penetration.
Important part here, main thing is that the trees give you much more cover, and long bullets don't really go through brick walls that easily anymore. So cover becomes more of a thing again.
Exactly.
Again, another list of weapon changes, nothing really too important. We already talked about the cracked scopes. Otherwise, watch the stream and you see all the details in the videos, linked to them.
And it will all be in the patch note as well. Like, I was already afraid that we might give you too much information, and it's like, there's no surprise. But
it's all good.
So exploding barrels of fire. So barrels do not longer directly get light because, or with bullets, unless you have fire, because obviously fire puts...
Ignites,
yeah.
So shoot a flare pistol on a barrel, instantly blows up, but no longer works like that for example, shotgun shells up close or long bullets at distance. Exactly. They follow the same rule as the other projectiles, so they set it on fire first and then it blows up after a second.
And if you were to throw a grenade past, for example, your explosive through next to fire or through fire, it will no longer blow up.
It's like a small delay, so it hopefully doesn't blow up in your face. It will eventually still blow up, but hopefully on the other side of the fire, not on your side.
Exactly.
Yeah, and general visual polish for like muzzle flashes and seeing like the smoke come off the barrel. So
looks
really nice stuff there.
Yeah. So world changes. I mean, just to give you an idea, we'll just go. We have a lot of world changes. Oh, we also have poison bombs, or they're the new type of barrels. They're poison barrels, right? Which will act a little bit like a poison bomb and a hive bomb combination. It's a lot of screen.
Can you imagine? I had to talk about each of them.
Yeah. Imagine if you had to do that just yet. So we had AI improvements. I had to like rename all of them like one. I mean, you can see it here. It's like stream prep is like always really fun. It's a lot of like numbering and sorting and to get an idea. So I don't know what else to think. So we had AI improvements. The emulator is a little less
powerful, but still it's red.
But harder to kill with like headshots and stuff.
Yeah.
Armor changes. The armor is smarter. He's a smarter boy.
Smashes in doors.
He can also smash in doors like the emulator. The grunt. He's now angrier. So he taunts.
When he can't reach you. Yeah.
Exactly. But there will be places where if you stand on something, they can still reach you even though you weren't able before, and they'll like slap your feet. Bad hunter. Oh my god, my stomach is so hungry. That was the massive like rumble ever. It's like the taunting hives. No, that was not the AC. So hive changes, it's because the way the hive swarms have changed. They now can be dissipating if you hit them a few times. And
yes, obviously the hive benefits from that change as well.
Exactly. Water devil spawns.
A bit fairer in how he aggroes and how you can defeat him. He's a bit weaker.
Move around more, so he will fill like different spots rather than staying too close to one spot. The hellhounds are also smarter boys now, and they can crawl under. Well, not crawl on the fences. They can just go under fences that have like the.
Where you would need to crawl under,
Exactly.
they can just move through. They will not jump fences, but they will go underneath. So it means you're not always exactly safe.
Wonder Devil and Fair don't belong in the same sentence. Meathead is quite actually
bigger change in this one. So the leeches become more aggressive as his sensors. They spread out more. They alert better. And in addition to that, if you get poisoned, that's a smell the meathead likes very much, and it goes after you within like 20 or so meters. So also opportunity for people to shoot you with poison stuff in order to make meatheads finish you off.
Yes. Okay, and that we have the two last ones. The spider changes. The spider now doesn't attack.
Yeah.
It goes also in French mode where she will like haunt you and just attack.
Yeah. Always think about like the butcher in this case. Find the right moment when you want to attack and when you want to run. Same thing for the spider with the frenzy mode. It has its moment where it can actually hunt you. The hunter becomes the hunted. Exactly.
And then we also have some assassin changes.
Goes in the same direction where basically the cloning becomes a bit more of a frenzy mode for him. So he will do more summoning of clones. And then during that time, it's when you really don't want to be focused on him, but actually try to maybe stay away from the clones, etc., until he is calmed down again, and then normal attack bit resumes.
Exactly. And that was pretty much it.
That was it?
1.0. Now we can do some questions.
Yeah,
I know
let's do
it's
some questions.
already late, but I know you guys have probably a lot of questions.
The good thing is they probably forgot like 2/3 of it already anyways.
Exactly. I mean, it is a lot. And next week there's going to be another stream, obviously, and the week after. I'm not going to give away yet what we're talking about next week, unless I actually already shared it and I kind of forgot that I said
I think you did.
Did I say it? I think I might have said it, actually. Well, just... I hope, like me, that you don't remember what I said. Let me see. Do we have inclusive features for deaf players that can't sense direction so well? We don't really have anything specific for deaf players, although the visual...
We talked about some of that stuff. This is unfortunately nothing which will happen for 1.0, but we do have accessibility on our list, and a couple more things you would like to do there.
Yeah. At the moment, we have no plans for replays. How long? Okay, I know a lot of people are asking for the ETA. We're not giving the ETA yet. Yeah. It's going to be soon when we'll share more about that. And it will go for some tests. I know a lot of people are worried, like, when should I, prestige? Because, you get the prestige rewards, and if you were to level, and then I'm at like 90 or let's say 98 bloodline level, and we say, okay, we're done, then you lose all those 98 levels. I'm pretty sure that we will do a good warning, so people know that they should prestige, and we'll give them some time.
Keep in mind, like with every release we've done so far, there's always going to be a test server period, right? So it's not going to happen from one day to another. So yeah,
so there will be enough thing. The prestige rewards you can see in a previous stream, so definitely.
That's
check
actually
that
true.
out.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Performance changes, yes, there will be ongoing performance changes as well. I mean, obviously we're also working on the Xbox version of the game, and changes we're doing and optimizations we're doing for that always also benefit the PC version. So there's moving around, give and take between changes between different branches. So expect also to receive further smaller updates here and there for performance on PC.
Okay. I see a lot of people are asking for things that are not talked about today. Here. With the new AI changes and boss changes, any reduction to the ammo, do you think it creates a conflict in game?
Let me read it myself. With the new AI changes and boss changes and the reduction on ammo, do you think it creates a conflict in game? I don't think so, because I don't think the last point is true. We don't really change ammo. We're actually giving a little bit more ammunition to some of the weapons of the same types. For example, Winfield C. The Winfield C actually just gets a little bit more ammunition compared to the others, so there's more of a difference between them, but it's not really taking away a lot. If so, it's only a few bullets in order to normalize them. But for the most part, I mean, we just also introduced like an ammo box. There are enough things in there, and the changes to AI don't make it necessarily tougher. They just mean that they become easier to understand, which is obviously good for new players, like they don't get completely overwhelmed, but also fairer to fight. Like, so if you are clever, if you understand the AI, and you can be very ammo efficient against them, like understand the weak spots, for example. And I think that overall balances each other out quite nicely.
Yeah, your stats will be wiped with the level progress. Does the BORNHEIM Extended still benefit from Bullet Rubber?
It does benefit from bullet grubber. The only difference is that you can't open the side to put a new magazine and just get 5 rounds in one go. You have to top up all rounds. So if someone is like kind of interrupting you, you might only have those few rounds you put in.
I know that there's something that we talked about before, but I just wanted to point out we have talked about like we're investigating to remove the auto aim aim assist on Xbox.
We're actually working very actively on that one as well. So Xbox will receive further updates on the line. Obviously, it's a game preview, right? And we actually have done quite a lot of changes already for how the aim assist and how the controls are working, giving you a bit more granularity, exposing certain features for what you can do, what you can tweak, how you can customize this. So I mean, basically, game preview is like early access on Xbox. So as such, obviously, the game takes its first steps and it grows from there. So there will be more updates, and expect until we release Xbox 1.0 that there will be a major change to all of that.
Yeah.
Based on the feedback, etc.
Exactly. The stage of dirtiness for weapons when you buy them from the shop is like the mild dirty. It's not completely clean.
I think it's actually. If you take a look at the weapons at the moment, they basically have a middle value somewhere, right? It doesn't change, it's not dynamic, but it's the same system underneath. So technically we can always say put more or less in, it kind of grows or shrinks based on how the parameters we set. But think of it like that. If you have a completely clean weapon and you have the ones you currently have on live, the weapons you buy from the shop are somewhere between those. Except for the legendary weapons, which will always be completely clean because someone is really polishing up for you because legendary.
Exactly. I see Grabbing Time. Are you doing something to fix the shadow desync with the weapon? It's not a pressing problem. Look at my shadow and see my weapon fly rinse a little bit. That is actually something that we talked about today.
Yeah, watch the stream and watch the video. It's very nice. There's no floating weapons anymore. We have proper third-person shadows, and we're very happy about this, even though it's a very minor feature.
I mean,
it's
apparently
really
people care about it, so it's good. Thanks, because I never really forgot.
Does weapon cleaning cost blood bonds? Yes, it's something we talked about in the last stream. So this is where we're also like for little convenience features like that, things that don't really affect gameplay, like the new currency will be used for. But again,
cosmetic stuff.
It's cosmetic, and you could also argue that the weapon that is completely dirty actually might even be better for camouflage, right? So give and take.
And you can just earn them without having to.
Exactly.
So you can earn them and clean it with that. Let me see.
Anything related to the things shown in the stream, guys?
Yeah, I'm looking for questions. Oh, sorry. How does the penetration damage affect headshots?
Well, basically it works like this already right now, even without doing any changes to it. So you have a base damage on the weapon. The projectile, as it travels, depending on the projectile type, loses that damage over distance. A compact bullet loses the ammo or like its damage much faster than, for example, a long bullet. That means even without any penetration, hitting a guy at a further distance means it's a weaker hit. On top of that, obviously, comes the fact that the player has different hit body locations, and they kind of multiply that damage that arrives depending on the area. It's, for example, why headshot is so lethal, because of this has a high multiplier on it compared to, for example, the legs and the arms. Now, an important point here is that by going through walls, additional damage is being deducted. So depending again on the bullet and depending on the number of penetrations you're doing, more of that initial damage also kind of is lost. So in combination, if you multiply all of this together and subtract and add, etc., you arrive at a specific point, and that's then the damage you receive. So if you're further away from a wall, shoot through the wall, there's a higher chance the guy might survive a headshot than if you're closer to the wall. Vice versa, it comes down to like a type of projectile, wall type, etc. It's a hundreds of variables that kind of affect us across the entire weapon arsenal. So we can't really explain this like in too much detail and give you all the answers, but the system is very flexible when it comes to that. There's actually one point that we did not put on the actual update change list, but I think is important to talk about alongside this, which is I mentioned, like, for example, the limbs doing less damage than the arms. Now, one thing that we found out is that especially if the guy is moving with a weapon in front, the weapon never was a problem. The shot would just go through the weapon, right? It was never a part, but the problem was that the arm is very often shielded.
Oh, yeah.
So one change we're also doing for 1.0 is that if you're shooting at the upper torso of an enemy and the arm is in the way, but you would hit the torso underneath, or either lower torso or upper torso, which are different zones, you would actually get the hit counted for the respective torso location.
Yeah.
So only if the arm is on the side and you would hit the arm only there, but actually there's nothing behind it, would it be an arm shot. So it's just an optimization, and the weapon balancing, etc., is taken into account. So it's not that much of an issue from a balancing point of view. Just means that there is a bit less RNG in the way you shoot at upper torso, so you have more reliable chance of doing damage.
Okay.
If you hit them.
I saw a good point. Don't you think the spider is going to be easier now? I mean, she doesn't hide so much anymore. You can just much easier burst her down.
But she also is more lethal and actually does more damage against you. So it's a give and take. I mean, you can also just go in with a stamina shot and a melee weapon, try to melee the butcher and just completely kill him, right? But you will receive damage against you while doing that. Now the thing is about normalization. Like if you can do it like a very easy way of killing one boss, but you can't do it for the other boss, you might actually gravitate towards that easier boss, right? Because it means shorter fight, which means less exposure to other teams possibly attacking you. And our goal is standardizing, normalizing between the bosses, so all of them become more interesting because of the different gameplay, but not because of the different difficulty.
Okay. I will do like 3 more questions. There's one I will just answer this normally. The Book of Monster will also be reset. Yes.
Yes.
Another one. How do Winfield changes affect the marksman and the aperture models?
Basically, on the marksman, you already have that, right? We go out between shots completely because it's a sniper scope rule set that kind of kicks in. That's the same thing as if you take a Mosin gun, for example. The basic Mosin gun is affected by Iron Sharpshooter, the trait, which is for iron sights, and then we have for the Mosin sniper version, the Sniper Scopesmith, which deals with that. So in a similar way, the marksman version is affected by the marksman trait, while Iron Repeater is affecting primarily the iron sights. Now, interesting thing here is that obviously aperture sight is an iron sight, so the aperture sight actually is affected by Iron Repeater rather than its own trait.
Okay. Okay, interesting. Okay, let's do one good question. Let me see.
Crytek, can you explain diffusing system? Let's take that one. So that basically it means the new Dauntless trait. So just to repeat quickly, like the Dauntless trait, if you have it on your hunter, means that if you get close to an explosive, you get a little interaction prompt, like press F to disable explosive. And unless the guy who threw it was very good in priming the grenade, so don't giving you a chance to get there in time, what you can do is you can press the button and goes out and you have diffused this. This explosive is then gone. There's no use for it. You can't pick it up or do anything with it. It's just gone. But you have kind of this diffused that situation and basically avoided, for example, getting killed in some very tight area you couldn't really leave in time anyways.
Exactly.
So just makes grenade spam less reliable in camping situations where you just want to like throw it inside boss arenas. There's a higher chance for people, obviously unless you are very good in cooking grenades, in order to counter it. But there's always a risk. You never know if the guy actually timed it perfectly.
Exactly. Okay. Then does that's actually one I want to know. Does Dauntless affect bomb lands?
Dauntless does not affect the bomb plans, I think. But then again, the bomb plans projectile is only really a projectile when you miss.
Ah, yeah.
However, as you might know, that we have Bulwark as a trait, which gives you 25%, I think it's 25, reduction of explosive damage. That also means if you have Bulwark on you, the bomb plants, if you have full health at least, cannot insta-kill you.
Wow.
You end up with very little health.
Don't let it take that.
But you can do that. And interesting part here is when we talk some of these traits, obviously they have received pricing updates. So upgrade point costs, etc., have been adjusted based on use, etc. So you see some of these traits that might have been a bit too expensive or a bit too cheap actually go up or down in prices, and it's something that you will be able to see on the test server.
Yeah.
And a little bit further down the line.
Okay. Well, that was it for today.
Yeah.
An extra long stream. We've been live for 2.5 hours. So
nice.
Next week we're just gonna go again. But in other news, tomorrow we have a broadcaster versus dev event again. It's gonna be with the following people. So we have some new people. I invited in the end someone who came in later because we had some people that unfortunately couldn't make it. So we're gonna have Mikey Games and Skate, Dangerous Dan, Greifenberg, Russell Go, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and we're gonna have Miss Pixels again, who joined last time, and then we're gonna have some devs. I don't know who exactly is playing yet, but
surprise,
you guys
surprise.
will see that tomorrow. We'll be streaming from 4 p.m. until 6. So I'll post another announcement for you guys to see it as well, and then yeah, hopefully we'll get some good games in.
Also, keep in mind, Steam Summer Sale.
Yes, that is correct. Steam Summer Sale is going on right now. We are having a discount. So if you missed your chance to grab it during the free weekend, you tried it out and you really liked the game, because I know there were some people that were like, oh no, I played and I didn't have a chance to buy it. I would say buy it now, because it's a good sale.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Tell your friends.
If you have any more questions, definitely join our Discord. It's discord.gg/Showdown. We'll answer all more detailed questions there, and I know that we have a lovely community with lovely moderators as well that will happily help you with anything for the game. So,
absolutely.
Thank you. Have a good night. Bye, guys.
Ciao.